Good afternoon, patrons, and welcome to the June 2017. Actually, this time, I don't have to, add a little kind of, quiet little joke on the end because it doesn't actually fall. It's actually falling in the right thing. It's actually falling in the right thing. I'm recording this on Wednesday, and if this all works as I should kind of plan it to and stuff, you should be hearing this on Thursday, which means it's actually going to happen. It's actually, the June one's going to fall within June for once. I know it doesn't normally happen. It's just like an odd coincidence that, just because the way the days of the week have fallen this month, because, I try and put out the announce on, a weekend, the last weekend before the end of the month was, the 24th and 25th, so actually there was plenty of time for me to gather questions and make it this month, because normally, I like to put out, the final weekend of the month, but then I like to, leave enough time for people to submit questions, so I leave it, 4 or 5 days or whatever, but I feel like, barely any questions have come in, over the past 12 hours, so as a result, I'm fine to do it now. So yeah, for once, just because of the way the month happened to fall, you actually get it this month. June! June's been interesting. June is the month of the great internet outage. That was very, very fun indeed. That's just the reason why you've seen some of the videos that have that came out in June. The reason why things like Monster Loves You, Monster Loves You actually came out. That was a reserve emergency series held back, which some people noticed because it was an older series, because it still had the old end card, and pretty much all of those have been retired at this point. So that's the reason that that actually came out when it did. But yeah, basically, our internet died on Friday morning. I think it must have been Friday the 16th of June. The internet died in the morning, and I made the catastrophic error of thinking, oh well, I'm sure it'll be back, there's just a network fault, it'll be back in a bit. I just kind of went into the big long recording session. When I came out in the afternoon, I thought, oh, the internet's still not here. Right, I should probably call Virgin Media at this point, and by the time I got around to doing that, they'd already gone home for the afternoon and the weekend, so we couldn't really actually I think they still answer the phone at the weekend, but they couldn't arrange an engineer anytime soon, and it was just us, and it was a broken hub. The actual internet hub thing was broken, so we couldn't even get anyone to actually show up till Tuesday, and they said, oh yeah, this person will definitely be able to fix it on Tuesday. We didn't trust that for one bloody minute. So we're left in a situation where I didn't have videos uploaded for the coming days. They were made, they just weren't uploaded, and videos are big, videos can be multiple gigabytes. So we desperately jumped between using these crappy little BT Wi-Fi hotspots that are really unreliable, and after about 2 days it stopped working and it refused to let my computer sign up. I genuinely think possibly BT blocked my IP because I was taking the mick by trying to upload. By that point I probably uploaded 18 gigabytes of data for a little public kind of Wi-Fi hotspot thing. So I imagine they thought I was taking the mick slightly, and I think they might have just blocked my IP or something, I don't know. But I just could not reattach that network, and then I was desperately writing to YouTube itself, and I managed to get hold of someone on Sunday evening and said, can we come into YouTube on Monday or Tuesday in order to actually upload directly into YouTube, because YouTube's got ridiculously fast internet, understandably, actually at their offices. And in the end, actually Claire was able to find a little office just around the corner from us that's a little kind of hot desking office where loads of small businesses just kind of all work in a shared space, and they were totally cool with us basically just going and hanging out in their reception area and just using their Wi-Fi all day for no charge, and Claire was able to find them. So Claire really saved us, which was magnificent. So we were able to kind of get some videos uploaded, and on Tuesday they did indeed manage to repair the internet, so that was good. And actually after that I've been thinking what we probably ought to do is I'm going to move our internet, because right now, because we both work from home, we've just, we have, a pretty fast, but it's still, a residential internet account, so I'm going to, change it over to, a proper business account. There's a proper service level agreement, so, if something goes wrong, even if it's, a weekend or whatever, they still send an engineer out to you, within the day. So I think that's what we're going to do. That's what I'm arranging right now, so that will hopefully not happen again in future. Other than that, of course, we had the merchandise. We finally had the merchandise. Yeah, I love the amount of stuff we've been able to do now. Claire's working for the channel, because all these things, ManyATrueNerd.com being back, and it just gained the fan art page recently, we announced during the Stellaris stream, and the merchandising existing and all that stuff. None of that. I'd never have been able to get around to any of that when it was just me. So we've got all these really cool things. I'm so glad we've got Claire to help out with all this stuff now. So we've got the merchandising, and the merchandising was really kind of Claire's baby in some ways. Claire did so much of the work on that stuff. It's remarkable. She's done a really, really good job. So we got the merchandise out. Some people were actually asking in the comments how much did it sell and we had no idea how much it was going to be. Whether it was, we figured it was going to be somewhere between 2, because Claire and I would buy some stuff, or it was going to be 270,000 of each if every single subscriber bought one of each. So we knew it was going to be somewhere in that range, or maybe theoretically it might have been a bit higher if, you know, some people have bought like 2 of each. So let's say 300,000. It was somewhere between 2 and 300,000, and indeed we were spot on. It was somewhere between 2 and 300,000. I think at the time of speaking right now, if I recall correctly, it's about like, I think it's about, we've sold about 250 mugs and 250 shirts. Now, I've got no real frame of reference for that. I'm told it's good from speaking to other people who put together merchandising campaigns, and also from actually speaking to DFTBA, who kind of are the people who are organising it through. Apparently that's good. I have no kind of frame of reference for this, because actually, you know what's really interesting? Because Claire was keeping an eye on this. She told me this. She showed me this morning, in fact. Basically, like, you know, obviously we gave the 20% discount code to you guys, to the patrons. The majority of sales were with the discount code, and meaning either the discount code like leaked to loads of people, but I think I would have noticed if it did, and I didn't see it on like through the subreddit or anything like that, or in the comments of the videos, so I don't think that happened. Suggesting, yeah, actually, like, about, like, you know, half plus of those sales were actually patrons, which I kind of did not predict at all. I wasn't expecting that. Like, you know, what I thought was, like, okay, so if you consider, like, the size of the community, there's about, give or take, 1% of subscribers are patrons, and that feels about, like, healthy-ish to me in terms of, like, you know, the proportion of your community that's going to choose to, like, join the Patreon. That strikes me as perfectly, like, fair and proper and healthy. So I thought, okay, so if we've got, like, 1% of people who are patrons and 99% of people that aren't, sure, the people who are patrons are probably going to be more likely to buy the merch than the people who haven't join the Patreon, but it's not going to be like overwhelming. But no, it was like apparently like over half of the staff was with the promo code. I don't know absolutely that means they were all active patrons. It could have leaked somehow through some method or other. I don't know, but like it feels like it was, which is, I was not expecting. That is actually a real surprise to me. Like the numbers, I look at that and think, okay, fine, that's, I guess that makes sense. But yeah, the fact that it was over half to the patrons, that really took me by surprise. And it's certainly like it's good enough that we'll certainly do other things. It's worth our while to do other things. Like, it's not actually going to make that much money at all, because, like, you know, there's the cost of the actual, you know, buying the thing itself that we have to pay, and then there's the cost that, like, DFTBA make. And part of the reason we're going with someone else and not doing it ourselves is we didn't want to, like, have to hold the stock, like buy the stock ourselves, store it at our home, and then, like, you know, mail it out and take it to the post office and stuff. Like, that would have been such a, like, a fuss and a huge kind of time sink. We thought, okay, fine. What we want to do is we want to find someone where we can just basically send the order and they fulfill the order, and basically the deal with them is we just send them or they send us money back and forth as is appropriate, but they can basically handle all of the physical side of the production and the fulfillment. And as a result, naturally, that means they take a portion of it too. So we're going to make a little bit of money out of this, and it's enough to kind of for Claire to dedicate some time producing some more stuff, and absolutely we're going to focus on some more. Like, I feel like I'd really like to just make a big... Actually, okay, there's two things I vaguely have in mind, and this is not like, you know, this is not a promise that these things are going to happen. I want a Julianus Vatinius mug of some description with, like, you know, like a lovely, like, a Roman standard and, like, Julianus Vatinius and, like, really, really fancy lettering underneath it or something like that. Like, it's like a fake Roman standard or something like that, like a Roman crest or something. Like, I want that on a mug in, like, gold lettering. Maybe it could be, like, a purple mug with gold lettering, something like that. I feel like that'd be cool. And I also just want a flip mug. I just want, like, a mug that's probably, like, just, like, a white mug, just with the word flip on it, just, like, written round and round and round it, like, the just little word flip, just over and over and over again, just stacked on top of each other, forming a great big just pattern of the word flip over and over. I just kind of want a flip mug. And I want the coasters. I've always wanted the coasters. I want, like, some nice, proper, thick, meaty, hard coasters. And I want those to... I want them to come in a set of 4, where each of them has, like, the galaxy pattern on it. And, like, one of them's got, like, a big M, and then another one's got a big A, another one's got a big T, another one's got a big N. So I want them to be, like, the MATN on the 4. That's kind of what I want for the coasters. So, like, I really want those 2 mugs and the coasters to come next. But like literally TFTP have never done coasters before, but they seem so up for it. So that's totally what I want to do. So that's you know, that's actually done, that's done all right. That's done well enough. We'll definitely be doing some more, because like the thing is, obviously when like you're dealing with another company, like when they order things, like they order mugs, they order t-shirts to print them, like they need to get up to a certain minimum threshold, or like it's not worth their while to actually produce them. So if they'd been like small numbers, they probably wouldn't have worked with us again. But like this was easily enough that like it works for them and they'll want to do more with us. So we're gonna make more merchandise happen. I don't know the exact timings. I don't have like timings in mind for that. Like probably we'll let it sit for a little while first, just to figure out like, you know, how well it worked in the long run, and like, you know, what kind of sales just kind of keep ticking in over time. And also we need to figure out how to like to properly like make the community aware of it. Because sure, we did like a video announce, but like I probably need to make like a little end card to slap on the end of some videos, or I need to get into the habit of mentioning it during the streams or whatever. Oh, that's another thing. The streams have been really interesting because I've pretty much given up on pretending the streams aren't a regular thing at this point. The streams are just happening on a weekly basis. I've really been enjoying them, actually. I've been enjoying doing the weekly streams on the Saturday. And we turned the super chat thing on. Possibly, when was the last Mass Effect? No, actually, I think this is the first Patroncast since we actually turned the super chat on, which is basically the equivalent of Twitch bits, because I think we turned it on for the first time in the Mass Effect stream that was Saturday the 10th of June, if I recall correctly. So yeah, basically it's just like a live donation system effectively built into YouTube, where people can donate and their message kind of flashes at the top of the chat for a bit. And I turned it on thinking like, oh, you know, like 2 people all use it and it'll make $4, but that's $4 we didn't have before. So, you know, that's good. That's good in the post-apocalypse world that we live in. But no, that's actually worked really, really well, actually. That's like, I was really surprised. Like, genuinely surprised. Like, you know, Claire was there and kind of trying to keep on top of donations, but they kind of they kept coming in during the super chats. That's actually made like a healthy contribution. Like, you know, when we have the super chat on, like the super chat has been consistently generating more in donations in like the 3-hour streams that we do than we make like in that entire weekend through ad revenue, like that YouTube provides its ad revenue. And weekend's our biggest time of the week. Like a single 3-hour stream has been generating more in those donations than like several days of ad revenue, which is crazy when you think about it. It's a real kind of it's a real sign of like how YouTube is shifting, and like just relying on ad revenue anymore just isn't gonna cut it. And like I keep, you know, I being a bit of a data nerd from my days when I worked in marketing for years, I like kind of keeping nice little charts that kind of show like how we're doing. And like the proportion of our income that's coming from ad revenue is just going down and down and down, and we're needing to kind of do more things like the super chat and the merchandising and the Patreon to make up for that. And it's working, actually. It's working really, really nicely. We've been through a process of, to use a term that sounds horribly clinical, but it's a good kind of expression for explaining it, we're going through a process of diversification at the moment, when back in the day, before we kind of had Patreon was a very small thing. Like, ad revenue was fine for just covering everything, but yeah, like at this point there's been no change whatsoever. Like as many of you may recall, like our ad revenue just basically collapsed like overnight between March have a 31st? March has a 31st. Good, I've just checked that there. March as a 31st. Yeah, it just basically collapsed in like March 31st down into early April. It just like fell off a cliff, and like, you know, it fell every single day for about 4 or 5 days. Then it hit like a bottom where it was like half what it used to be. It has recovered maybe 5% of that in the past like 2-3 months. Because yeah, that was the beginning of April. It's now the end of June. I've got data up to the 26th of June in front of me, because there's a tiny bit of latency in the data on YouTube. Like, it's recovered maybe like 5%. It's on a very, very slight upward trajectory, but I'm not actually sure that's even anything recovering. I think what that is that's just the CPM, the amount that gets paid out for ads, is going up slightly, because it always kind of, it's a bit quiet around like spring, summer time, but we're kind of starting to slowly approach. Actually, that doesn't really make sense. Maybe it is very slightly recovering. Like, I would expect it to rise naturally in August, then September, October, and November, just because ads become more valuable as we start approaching the final quarter of the year, and all the big games come out in that period. But for the time being, yeah, maybe it would be expected to be flat. So maybe it's improving slightly, but like it's still miles under what it was in like, you know, the entirety of February and March, which is weird because February is supposed to be a really bad month. Like January and February are supposed to be really bad, but the rest of the year kind of pays for how bad they are. But like January was as poor as you'd expect. February recovered nicely. March was really good. And then April fell right back down to January levels. Like, we're basically, this entire, like, the past 3 months, YouTube ad revenue has been at January levels. And January is the thing all YouTubers fear because January is horrible. But it's just now, it's January all the time, which sounds horrendous. But yeah, things like merchandising and Super Chat have been kind of helping to kind of offset that. So that has been very, very nice indeed. Did I mention the Oculus thing? Last month, by the way, the thing I'm doing, that's... Actually, wait, by the time you actually hear this, I'm going to be putting it out tonight. I was really planning to put the first part of that out tomorrow evening, so you'd have got Patroncast first, but I think I've just swapped it around because I realised my calendar looked a bit illogical, so I've just swapped things around. Claire hates it when I do this, I think. I will regularly just look at the schedule and I'll just change it all around and completely reorder the videos I'm releasing. I think it's slightly better, but that's really annoying for Claire, because when I change all the videos around, like, because she makes a large number of thumbnails these days, like, it changes the order in which thumbnails and when thumbnails are required by. So I have to kind of, you know, I'll change everything around and it screws up her day. So I imagine Claire doesn't like me doing this. But yeah, Super Hot VR came out yesterday, but for me it's not coming out for a few hours as yet. And yeah, that's the first of the videos I'm doing with, I say with, I can't remember if I mentioned this in the last Patroncast, but I've explained it fully in the video. Yeah, basically Oculus said, hey, do you want a free Oculus and the Rift, and also we'll send you the codes for any games you choose, and you get to pick the games. And, like, you know, then as long as you just kind of say in the description that it was given to you for free and provide, like, the links we provide to link through to the Oculus and whatever, then you can just do whatever games you want. So it's like, oh, that seems like a pretty sweet deal. That's, you know, quite a few £100s of hardware that you're going to send through for free. And sure, it's like, it's free hardware, but we get free software in the form of review code all the time, so I don't really see it's any worse than that. And I'll very clearly say at the beginning of every video that's what's happening, just to make sure there's absolute transparency in it. So I don't really think of it as sponsored. I think Oculus might think of it as sponsored because, like, they're very keen on, you know, you've got to disclose this, you've got to disclose, and I probably would have done it anyway. But, like, the way they talk about it, they feel like it's sponsored. I don't know, maybe if other YouTubers were able to, like, negotiate money off them. I didn't want money, like, off them at all. I don't like taking money from publishers or hardware developers or anything. Like, I'm happy to accept the free stuff in the form of the games or the hardware because that's useful to let me make stuff in future. Like, it lets me make good videos that I want to make, but I wasn't sure whether I considered it sponsored or not, but I explained it clearly. But yeah, first part of that's happening. We've got actually, I think some really good ones are coming up actually. This Saturday, Batman Arkham VR. That's going to be coming up on this Saturday. That's a really good one. I've done that already. Then there's I Expect You to Die. Coming up next week, which is a little kind of a slightly lesser known game, but it's all about like you're a secret agent with psychic powers and you have to solve like slightly complicated puzzles. That's really good actually. That works really nicely in VR. And then a week on Saturday, this is the big interesting one that I haven't made yet because I'm still working on it. I want to do a kind of a big collab Star Trek VR video, because obviously now we've got a Vive and we've got the Oculus in the house. That means both Claire and I can be in VR simultaneously. So Claire and I can do Star Trek VR together, and I'm speaking to a few other people about getting involved too. Like, hopefully we'll be able to get Madphobia involved. I need to speak to Dan actually. If I could get Dan involved, I'd love Dan to be involved. I'd love to do a big 4-player Star Trek VR with me, Claire, Matt, and Dan. But that's still to be arranged. We'll have to see about that. We'll have to see. So I'm still speaking to people about that, and we'll have to see. Because, like, surprising number of YouTubers, like, they don't, well, I say surprising, it's not really that surprising. Like, quite a few YouTubers just don't have VR kits, so, like, you can't approach them to do that. Like, it's still a fairly niche thing, even among YouTubers. The number of people who do VR videos is not desperately high right now. So that's going to be a big thing. Like, and I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know how it's going to go. Because I'm going to skip ahead to one of the questions here. Because one of the questions that came over in the submission thread was, what video have you made that you think, you're disappointed in how it did? You think it should have done better? Pretty much all the VR videos. And I understand why some people don't want to watch the VR videos. Because, like, maybe they're not so comfortable to watch because they're a little bit more juddery. Because it's very hard to keep your head perfectly still. So while they're really immersive, and also maybe there's a bit of, like, this disconnect between, like, my reaction to things and how it looks to you. Because to you it probably looks a bit flat and small and normal, but to me it's amazing because I'm actually in VR. So there's a big disconnect between what I'm experiencing versus what the audience is experiencing. But in terms of, like, the jokes and the setup and like how I produce it and like how much I'm enjoying myself. I think the VR videos are some of the best I've done. Like, I think like one of my favorite videos I made this year was the golf club VR, me playing golf in VR. I think that's a fantastic video. I think there's so many good moments. I really enjoyed that, and I think I really get really into it. And I thought it was a brilliant video. It was really badly watched. God, like, hang on, let me check this. Let me go find this out. Yeah, it has total. I just said it came out this year. It didn't. It came out last year. But say of the last 6 months, it came out in November. That's not 6 months, John. It's the end of... Oh, for goodness. Last 8 months. In the last 8 months. Videos from the last 8 months. I think it's such a really damn good one, the Golf Club VR. It has like about 25,000 views, which is really low for a one-off video that came out like ages ago. Like, you know, like, things that are long-running series do way flipping more than that. Like, you know, the first part of Monster Loves You, which was a kind of a brief short video, that got like 31,000 already, and that'll gain a bit more yet. And like loads of other like little just random one-offs. Like City Skylines, the one-way challenge, which was hilariously good fun. My new hobby is trolling the City Skylines community, by the way. I might just keep doing it for a while. That's got like 65,000 views. That's great. And it's kind of true across the board. Like Pyro VR, I thought was a really great video, and that only got like 23,000 views. Even though that was a great video and a great game, and I had a load of fun playing that. I think it's just anything VR-y people don't like. So I'm kind of hoping, because all these games I'm planning, with the exception of, well, I expect to die, so maybe that one's just not going to do very well, but whatever. I enjoyed playing it anyway. Although the games other than that are really well known, like Super Hot and Batman and Star Trek, I'm hoping that'll mean they do a little bit better. I expect maybe they'll do slightly worse in terms of views, but it's kind of a bit of a litmus test for me. Because if like all 4 of them don't do very well, we'll probably like tone back on the VR stuff full stop. We just won't do that much of it unless there's really exceptional reasons to do so. But yeah, I really enjoy the VR stuff. I think the VR stuff's actually some of the more interesting videos I do. But for whatever reason, they're just really not watched. And yeah, I guess there's an element of comfort and disconnect, and some of the games are kind of very small, so the videos tend to be a lot shorter, and maybe some people just aren't interested in watching VR games because they don't have a VR headset and they're not planning to get one soon, so it seems irrelevant to them. I can see why there's loads of reasons why people opt out. I think it's just a shame, because I think genuinely they're like some of the better videos I'm making. Still, that's all that. What is... Oh, yes, sorry. I should mention, of course, I should give you guys the world exclusive reveal a day ahead of time for the new Friday series that's replacing Fallout 4 Level 1 Survival, because of course, as I said, we're having a little break from Fallout 4, so something else was starting on Friday, or is starting Friday, because for both you and me, it's still in the future. Ooh, time is confusing. What is actually replacing it is Red Dead Redemption. I'm going to do a full kind of series on Red Dead Redemption, because obviously Red Dead 2 is coming out in, I think it's been delayed into early 2018 now, so I kind of want to play Red Dead Redemption first. I've never played it before, this is my first time playing through it. I just recorded the first couple of parts today. Really loving it. Like, the story and the script and the voice acting especially are brilliant, aren't they? For a game that like only came out on 360 and PS3, it still looks gorgeous. It looks absolutely lovely. I'm amazed at how nice it looks and how nice it sounds. The soundtrack's great, the script's great, the voice acting's great. I'm having a lovely time with it. So yeah, I mean, like, series are really hard to predict. Series are really damn hard to predict. Because, like, you know, some things like Prey and Mass Effect 2 and Dishonored 2 do alright. But by the time you hit part, like, 3 or 4, like, a large number of people have lost interest and wandered off. And that's fine. Some people are just here for the one-offs. Or, like, you know, they're just interested in Total War. Or they're just interested in Fallout. So, like, you know, they'll watch something new. But after a couple of parts, they'll lose interest. And that's fine. But, like, some series just go crazy. Like, you know, at one point, I didn't know Total War was going to be pretty much, like, the biggest series on the channel. I didn't even know for certain Skyrim was going to work, because I was worried Skyrim, because I'm neither brand new to it nor know it brilliantly well as an expert, I thought it might sit uncomfortably in the middle, where like therefore people might lose interest. But no, Skyrim's been amazing as well. I thank Benor for that. The story of Benor has just been beautiful in the Skyrim series. But yeah, we're starting Red Dead Redemption on Friday, and that's going to be a weekly Friday series from now on. And yeah, I actually think the first couple of parts of that are really fun. I think I've been having great fun with that so far. I think it's been a really fun little series. I mean, it's a pretty chill series, because there's quite a bit of like story and like, you know, conversations on horseback as you're riding somewhere. So it's a bit of a chill series, but I think it's a nice change of pace from kind of like the, you know, hyperactive running around healing, you know, desperately healing Ben or desperately running away, whacking things with sticks in Skyrim. I think it makes a nice change. It's a very chill series, but obviously, there's lots of like good quality, solid, meaty gunfights in it as well. I just think it's a nice series to be doing on the channel. So looking forward to that starting. I really hope it does well, because I've really been enjoying playing it for just like the first little bit I've done so far, and I definitely want to do a full series of it. So yeah, hope it does well, because I think it deserves to. Anyway, that's enough of that. On to the questions. I'm going to start with the most recent questions actually on the sketch. I'm going to start with the most recent question I have actually here. So, John, do you have a plan on playing? Oh, we've got a list of games here. Half-Life, depends on which one. Half-Life I might do as like a special one point, the same way I did like the original Deus Ex as like an anniversary. Maybe I'd do like Half-Life as like the 300,000 special or something. I like doing like really old classic well-known games where I never really played them because I never really had a PC at the time when they were coming out. I like doing those as like specials. Half-Life 2, maybe I'd do like a one-off at some point, but I don't really know. Portal! I've actually already done Portal in some capacity anyway. If you look up Portal 2... Many a True Nerd and Mataphobia. I think if you just look up Portal 2, Many a True Nerd, you should find it. I did a co-op video with Matt. I think it was a live stream with him, and that is actually available on YouTube right now. So if you want to watch me playing Portal, you already can. Or Wolfenstein, because Wolfenstein New Colossus is coming soon. I don't know where to bloody start with Wolfenstein. It's been rebooted and has like confusing naming protocols. Because like in the last few years, we've had Wolfenstein, Wolfenstein New Order, Wolfenstein Old Blood, and now we've got Wolfenstein New Colossus. And it confuses me that the order of Wolfenstein is Wolfenstein, new something, old something, new something again. And I don't understand. That's so confusing to me. That's a really bad naming system. So, like, I don't know. If I wanted to play one of them ahead of New Colossus, which should I do? Because I heard, like the original Wolfenstein, and by not the original Wolfenstein, but the rebooted Wolfenstein. The first Wolfenstein of the new Wolfensteins wasn't very good. So I would imagine I'd start with Wolfenstein The New Order? Perhaps? Because that seems to be regarded as, like, the good one. I think the Old Blood's kind of like a spin-off prequel or something? So, like, I don't know if I just played New Blood, do you think that would be a good thing to start off with? Just do as like a quick maybe weekly mini-series ahead of New Colossus? Let me know. That would be actually something I'd be interested to know about. Have you considered adding a date for Question Closer for Patroncast submission posts to reduce the number of posts that get commented on too late? I don't think so, because like I think I leave it until like quite a few days have passed when the questions have really kind of reduced to a trickle. So I don't think we need to do that. Plus, like, I don't really want to do that because I don't always know when I'm going to record the Patroncast. Like, if I set a cutoff date and someone misses that, then actually I might not even record the Patroncast for a day after that point. So some people, like, would think they'd miss it when they wouldn't have missed it otherwise. Like, in all fairness, like, the worst that happens is, like, a couple of questions get cut off and they can get asked again the following month. I think, like, there's one actually inside this list of questions that's already doing that. So I don't think it's the end of the world as is. John, do you drink any sort of beer? No, I've never been a beer drinker. I just don't enjoy the taste. I more likely drink spirits and cocktails. I'm much more of a spirit and cocktail drinker. Oh, I could really go for a mojito right about now, in fact. And I do enjoy a good Pimm's. It's always Pimm's o'clock with me. So yeah, I do enjoy the odd kind of mixed spirits and cocktails rather than beer. I've never been a beer drinker. Is the Parkitect series ever coming back? Probably that series and that park I've played with before. Probably not. I'll probably wait for them to do like the next big release, whether that's into... They're in early access. If they're in early access right now, like when they launch it, or if they're in alpha right now when they enter early access, because I can't remember what even stage they're in right now. Like, the amount of stuff they're adding in is pretty slow. Like, if you look at Planet Coaster and the big summer update that just came out with, like, say, the fireworks that Dan was looking at very recently in a live stream, like, those are big, chunky, meaty updates where every new update is kind of worth looking at again. To me, it feels like Parkitect's being updated very, very slowly. I think it's because a much smaller team is working on it. So like they release an update, but the update is like a handful of new assets. It doesn't feel like it's like worth dipping into over and over again. So I feel like I'm going to wait for it to be a bit more done before we look at it again. John, I'm sorry I couldn't get Jennifer Hale to say I'm Commander Shepard and Many a True Nerd is my favourite channel on YouTube. Well, you've just failed then, haven't you? But it gets to sign my Garrus as my space boyfriend poster, so there's that. I was genuinely interested in that because this kind of came up a couple of times and I was really interested, like, are you actually going to a game show and is Jennifer Hale going to be there? I wonder if she'll do it. Oh, I'd love it if she did it. It'd be amazing if she did it. But no. I was thinking, like, they probably wouldn't do that, because I imagine, like, I don't know if there's, like, rules about it, or whether just, you know, as a professional voice actress, like, you know that, like, when someone says, hey, can you say out loud that such and such is your favourite thing, they probably won't just do it, because if they don't know what it is, they might be, you know, they might be backing something that could be, like, horrendous. Like, you say, hey, could you just say out loud that you really like this thing you've never heard of? Well, that thing you've never heard of could be, you know, like a neo-Nazi having sex with pig fan site or something. You just don't know. So, which is not what many a TrueNet is, I should clarify. Definitely not under any circumstances. But, you know, she doesn't know that. She doesn't know that it's not the neo-Nazi pig sex thing. So I can understand why she wouldn't under the circumstances. But that is still a shame. It would have been amazing if she had. John, I've recently become quite fascinated with Roman, Imperial and Byzantine history. Are there any books, documentaries, YouTube videos or YouTube channels that touch more on the subject that you would recommend to me? I actually think, even though it's not, like, dedicated to classic stuff, and it's not perfect, there are some things, I personally really enjoy the Extra History channel, and they've done some fun stuff on Byzantine and Roman history. They don't really touch on Greek, to be honest. They mainly kind of touch on Roman. Actually, you didn't even mention Greek. You said in your question Roman, Imperial and Byzantine. So, yeah, they kind of focus more on that area anyway, to be honest. So, yeah, I think those guys they're fun and accessible ways to kind of get a kind of little bit of an introduction to certain areas of history. So I think that's a really cool YouTube channel for that sort of thing. You seem to like science fiction type of games. Did you like this genre in your childhood as well? If yes, have you at any stage of your life considered majoring in science? If yes, why haven't you? I'm not sure what majoring actually means. Like, I hear this word in a lot of, like, American school shows. I'm not sure what it means. Does that mean, like, doing a degree on it? Because, yeah, I think it's like doing a degree on it. Because, like, in America, like, degrees are more generalist, aren't they? Because in the UK, we pick one very narrow thing and we just do our degrees on that. So, like, there's not really major and minor things. Like, you just pick one thing and you just do that. So, I guess if you're asking, have I ever thought about doing a degree in science? No, it's because I wasn't very good at science. Well, actually, I was okay at science. I dropped physics as early as I was allowed to, because in my school system, you could drop, like, one of the three sciences of chemistry, physics, and biology, as long as you kept up the other two. So I dropped physics as early as I could, and I wasn't, like, desperately good at physics. And it's also just because I had a teacher I really didn't get on with. I just felt like me and him didn't see eye to eye. Like, I just didn't really, like the way he taught things. So possibly, like, I had kind of physics ruined for me by a slightly bad teacher, which I suppose looking back is kind of sad in some ways, but, you know, doesn't really matter. And I kept doing chemistry and biology. And then chemistry then betrayed me and stabbed me in the back, because when I was doing my GCSEs, which is the standardised test we do in the UK when you are 16, I think that's still true. I don't think those have changed recently. I think the A-levels have changed somewhat dramatically. I think GCSEs are broadly as they used to be. And when I did that, I did 9 GCSEs, and I got, because the top grade you can get in GCSEs is A star. It's A star, then A through to, I think it goes to D, then it drops to, does D then drop down to U for ungradable? I think maybe there's an E. I can't remember what it goes to. Maybe there's an E. But I got, out of my 9 GCSEs, I got 8 A stars and 1 A. And the A was in chemistry. And I've never forgiven my chemistry teacher for that. He ruined... I decided, obviously rather than taking personal responsibility at the time, I decided it must have been my teacher's fault. In retrospect, like, I think it was... I just never understood, valency in kind of chemical elements. I just never got my head around valency. And to this day, I don't understand bloody valency. So I think that's probably what screwed me over slightly. But I blame my teacher for not teaching me valency better. So then I dropped chemistry after GCSE because it had betrayed me. I actually did biology at AS, mainly because, like, other than that, I was doing ancient Greek, Latin, history, and my school basically tried to gently tell me, hey, maybe you should do something that's not, like, set in the distant past. And, okay, fine, I'll do one science for a year, if that'll shut you up. So I did biology for 1 year as well, for what we call the AS level. So I think, again, I think they've changed their names as well in recent years. Basically, like, I did 1 year of it up to when I was 17, then I dropped that as well. But yeah, I never really thought about doing the sciences, because clearly it's just, like, it just wasn't where my strengths were. Like, I've always enjoyed sci-fi as a genre, but, like, as an actual discipline to study, I was just never good at it. I was always better at history and linguistics and stuff. Is July going to be the month when you finally dive into the Witcher games? No, not according to the current schedule, it's not. I was actually, I'm going to... I'm basically going to give you all hope, then immediately kick it out from under you right now. Based on the fact that it came up again in this month's Patreon, and it's come up many times before, people were saying like, hey, stalker, stalker, stalker. I was actually planning to say during this Patroncast, okay, I'm gonna... Actually, you know what? No, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do one of the stalkers. I was about to say no, I'm not going to. But I was like, actually, I could just do it the following week. It's fine. I was going to do some stalker in the week starting July the 10th, Monday, July the 10th. But then, just yesterday, an indie dev, emailed me with, hey, we made a game you really liked. We've just made a new game that looks even better. Do you want to play it? I'm like, hell yes. And I don't want to say what that is because I don't want to spoil it. But I want to play that instead. But, yes, okay. Before the end of this month, before the end of this bloody month, I'm going to do a midweek mini-series on a Stalker game. But I don't know which one, because there's loads of them. I own all of them. I own all of them because I bought a bundle at one point. If you are a fan of the Stalker series, tell me in the comments, like underneath, like on Patreon itself or on the YouTube video. I'll keep an eye on both. Which I should play if I've never played the Stalker game before, and I want to do just one to see whether I like it. Because I think, like, Shadows of Chernobyl was, like, one of the first of the modern Stalker games. Or possibly it was the first one full stop. I can't remember if there's, like, older retro Stalker games. And I think I've played that one, like, for, like 10 minutes or something at one point, but I never recorded it. I was just to test whether it ran ahead of doing it with for a charity live stream when we couldn't actually get the multiplayer to work. I think all the servers have been dead for years. Let me know which one I should do. And there will be Stalker before the end of this month. Not Witcher. Not Witcher, because I'm sorry the person who just requested The Witcher, but the Stalker people have been asking for longer. And I'm finally going to do one of those things. But, like, I do want to get round to those, and I think Witcher 1 will come at some point in the next month or two as, like, a midweek mini-series. Because, like, during the summer, so few games come out. Like, I'm just kind of look at... yeah, August looks really quiet. Like, coming out in August, there's, like, Tacoma, which I've got my eye on, kind of right at the beginning of August. Then there's, like, nothing for, like, weeks. Lawbreakers might be okay. Dauntless enters alpha in flipping mid-August, but I don't even bother with that. Yeah, there's so much empty space in August before we actually hit like the end of August when a bunch of stuff's going to happen and then everything starts getting busy in September. Like, I suspect possibly August. Don't quote me on that. You're going to quote me on that. But don't quote me on that. But it might happen. Game recommendation for Battlezone 98 Redux. I just went and looked at the trailer for this. Honestly, I don't think it's my thing. It looks like very much zippy aroundy, shooty, but like not much in the way of context or story. And honestly, it's not really my sort of thing, I don't think. So I may get round to it, but honestly, I just don't think that's quite my cup of tea. You want to judge about doing a Metal Gear series? Is it something you'll actually consider making? No, as I've said before, me and Metal Gear fell out when I played Twin Snakes for the GameCube, and it was literally the worst thing ever. And we've never really made up after that. Maybe at some point I'll actually play Twin Snakes again. Oh, that's a bad idea. Do you know, like, anytime I play a franchise where there are lots of fans and I don't like it, it just doesn't end well, and those videos are not popular. They get a lot of dislikes and people are very angry in the comments, so probably shouldn't do that. Maybe I'll go back and, like, look at, say, Metal Gear Solid, like... Wait, is it Metal Gear... Was it still Metal Gear Solid 2? Is it just Metal Gear... I can't remember how the naming protocol works for this game. At some point, I probably will, but I don't really know, because, like, it's Konami, and Konami are dicks, and Konami are the worst, so I'm not really sure. Will you ever play one of the Railroad Tycoon games? I never have before. It's one of those games where absolutely, I think I could actually have a really fun time doing a little mini-series of it. So yes, absolutely, we shall add that to the long list. And it's one of those games like, you know, like Roller Coaster Tycoon or stuff like that, where absolutely, I think it would be really fun to do a little mini-series of it at some point. Or a live stream, actually. I feel like that potentially would be a good live stream candidate. Excel Let's Play when... I might do that as like a real special, actually. This isn't a joke, by the way. I genuinely want to do like an Excel video. It'd be great fun. I'm pretty damn good with Excel. It'd be a really fun video. I don't know if it would be a one-off. I could probably do like a series. Maybe try to... I'd love to do a series of videos that are like an introduction to Excel into the more advanced stuff, but making Excel fun. And it can also be about data automation and visualization as it goes along too. I just don't know whether it's a good idea, because, like, I think for, like, you know, the 5% of people that look at that and think, oh, that's really cool, there'll be 95% of people who think, well, John's completely flipping lost it. There's the unsubscribe button, lovely. Maybe I'll just do a one-off as a starting point. Maybe for 300,000 and we'll go from there. Can Tabby pics be a confirmed thing for every Patroncast? They can now! Claire! Run the Tabby pictures! Take pictures of Tabby and then run the pictures of Tabby! Poor Tabby, she's had a bad month. She had to go to the vet for her shots, and then they investigated a small lump that they found on her chest, and that turned out to be entirely benign, but she had to have it removed under surgery, under anaesthetic. She was very grumpy about that, and it bugged her, and then she had to go back to the vet a third time. She hates being picked up and shoved in the cage to be taken to the vet. But she then had to go back to the vet a third time to have the stitches removed, and she's not had a good month, but she's chilling out now. So yeah, while I've been saying all this, hopefully Claire's been running the pictures of Tabby. Have you ever played 1602 AD, Caesar 3, or Pharaoh? None of the above. If I had to play just like one of them, which do you think is the best? What is the strangest, funniest thing you've read outside of politics this year? There's nothing outside of politics this year. I genuinely try to think of an answer to this question. I can't think of anything outside of politics. Politics is just too horrendously, darkly comic car crash at the minute. It's just too ridiculous. Nothing exists outside of politics. There's just like so much that's like the election result in terms of just like dark comedy couldn't have been more perfect. Like, you know, Theresa May standing up saying you mustn't ever vote for Jeremy Corbyn because there'd be a coalition of chaos and he's associated with Irish extremists and also Magic Money Tree. And obviously, like, immediately after the election, she's had to get involved in a coalition of chaos with a group with some connections to some really dodgy Irish extremists, and she's done it by throwing money at them. It's just, it's insane. It's absolute, the whole thing is just crazy. And then just in recent days on TV, series of politicians on TV going, oh yeah, we were totally planning to give £1 billion to Northern Ireland anyway. Like, this has nothing to do. It's absolute pure coincidence that, like, the same day we decided to give $1 billion to Northern Ireland, we also happen to need a Northern Irish political party support to stay in government. Genuinely, politicians have been on TV saying that, saying, oh no, it's nothing to do with that, Northern Ireland's always needed help. It's like, well, why haven't you been giving it to them for the last bloody 7 years then? Oh, British politics is kind of wonderful and terrifying and hilarious and dreadful at the same time. It's like, we want to give Donald Trump a run for his money. We really do want to. I don't think we can. It's gonna, you know, it's gonna take a lot of hard work to be as much of a horrendous hot mess politically as Donald Trump, but we're gonna give it a damn good go. You mentioned previously how much you work the hours each day and more or less every day. I get that to the point with Patreon here. How much would you have to donate to get you to take weekends off? I actually don't want to answer that because I never want to be in a situation where I'm like saying the Patreon, you know, it must get to this level and then I'd take time off or whatever, because I'd feel like that feels to me like it could be interpreted too much as like me trying to manipulate or get people to donate more. So I choose not to answer that question because it's not a case of just like money. It's just a case of who I am, and it's something that like Claire and my parents and friends have called me out on before, which is like when I get my head stuck down in something, I'll just kind of do it for hours and hours and hours, and like sometimes like when I just get into something, I'll just do it, and like the idea of like, you know, the idea of working 14 hours straight sounds horrendous, but like I'll just kind of occasionally do something like that and not even really think about it. And like it's not even about like, you know, if a certain amount of money I'd say, oh yeah, well now I can put my feet up on Sundays or whatever. It's just who I am. It's just kind of who I am. So I choose not to give a direct answer to that question. The next question's about, I think, indirectly about Super Chat, about the donation system in the live stream. Just to clarify on that, like, that's a system that's entirely set up by YouTube. Like, we don't get to say, like, how that runs at all in terms of, like, you know, how long a message stays at the top of the chat in a Super Chat message when you're doing a live stream. Like, that's entirely decisions made by YouTube. As far as I'm aware, there's no settings we can tinker with back end for that at all. So that's just as it is. Like, we're not making any conscious decisions for how that's run. We've just basically told YouTube, yes, you can turn it on. And other than that, that is just how it is. So we can't actually change that at all. As a representative of our fountain pens, I have to ask, what's your preferred writing utensil? Oh, I'm a total writing scrub. I just like a nice big black biro, that's it. You mentioned doing old school point-and-click adventures during The Artifact. May I recommend Full Throttle, the classic LucasArts adventure? It's interesting, point-and-click adventures that are really old school ones, the really old adventure games, are really interesting because they're gaming classics, absolutely, but they're very long. They're relatively slow, and I don't know if they necessarily make good spectator sports. Like, I don't think they necessarily make good YouTube videos. I think, like, if I did one, either it would need to have to be, like, a very long series or hugely editorialised, in which case you kind of miss the point, because some of the charm of that was, like, you know, the really good quality writing, but I think I'm worried they're slow. The Artifact was... I didn't go into that knowing it was going to be that. I thought like the Artifact was going to be like a maybe psychological horror mystery puzzle game. I didn't realise it was going to be like a point-and-click adventure that feels like it sort of should have been a VR game, but wasn't. Like, that wasn't what I was expecting at all. And the Artifact also was actually an emergency video. That one I've been holding on to for some time as well. I was planning to kind of release that one whenever we had a spare moment. And actually, the reason that came out on Monday was because Superhot VR was originally going to come out on Monday, but it wasn't quite ready yet, which is why that moved to tonight by my standards, or yesterday for you, assuming this has come out by Thursday. If it actually comes out on Friday, then, like, change every time I say, today, every time I say tonight to yesterday, and every time I say yesterday to the day before, yeah, that should work. That'll be absolutely fine. But yeah, short answer is, I personally am not convinced they make good videos. My instinct tells me they are not good candidates for making videos with. John, are you getting enough exercise? Probably not. Don't ask me questions that make me feel bad about myself. Almost certainly not. I do make a big effort to never, like, you know, stay in the house all day. Like, I always try and go outside and get a nice kind of bit of exercise and get some fresh air and whatever every single day. But regardless, probably not, no. Is there any chance of you playing Shadows of the Colossus and or a Silent Hill game? Shadow of the Colossus, that's actually just been announced as they're not quite remaking that, but like, I think they're just remastering it, aren't they? I think that's just been announced at E3. So when that comes out, yes, that would be a good opportunity for me to look at that. Silent Hill, probably not, because I'm a coward, I don't like horror games. So probably not. With the original Fallout under your belt, have you considered playing more of the old isometric RPGs like Baldur's Gate, Planetscape, Torment, Icewind Dale, etc.? Probably not. The thing about Fallout 1 is, as a series, it's done okay, but honestly, like, next to anything else I've ever done in Fallout terms, like, it's done pretty poorly. Yeah, I just kind of got the data up in front of me there. So, like, say, when we're up to the 12th part of Fallout 1, and we're up to part 14 at the moment, yeah, by the 12th part, that got 30,000 views. Now, 30,000 views is fine. You know, it's good, it's okay, but that is probably underperforming other things. Like, say, Fallout 4 Nuka World, when that was at level 12, sorry, part 12 even, when that reached part 12, that got to 46,000 views, and honestly, like, Fallout 4 Nuka World, like, a fair few people commented, you know, some people are getting a bit bored of Fallout 4, which is why I wanted to give it a bit of a break before we got into You Only Live Once. But I thought it was really, really interesting, because the number of people that, like, you know, get very snooty in the comments, like, oh, Fallout 4, it's not a very good Fallout game, is it? Oh, no, I hate Fallout 4, it's such a casual game for filthy, filthy casuals. And, you know, like, and those same people I assumed would be the same hardcore fans that would be like, oh, yeah, the original Fallout, when everything was really flipping hardcore and whatever. But no, Fallout 4, even after I did, like, you know, basically in a row, I did the original Fallout and no guns, and then survival mode, and into level 1 survival, like, despite basically all of those running into each other, and in the case of no guns and survival overlapping slightly, Fallout 4 still very handily has outdone my very first playthrough of the original Fallout, like, by quite a significant margin. Like, you know, that's like 50% more views on top of the original Fallout. So Fallout's been doing fine. Like, you know, a series, when it gets up to, like, part 10, 12, whatever, still drawing in 30,000 views, is good. But next to, like, pretty much any previous Fallout series, it's relatively on the poor side. Let's just go a little bit further back and kind of see how that compares to other things. Like, say, here we are. So, like, for example, what was that? The Survival Mode Grand Finale. Sorry, I've just noticed that for some reason the grand finale of Fallout New Vegas Survival Mode had monetization disabled for some reason. I have absolutely no idea why. Let's find out. It doesn't even say. I have no idea why. I'm guessing maybe it was matched against some audio or something. I'm generally not sure. But say Fallout New Vegas Survival Mode, even when it got up to like part 40 and whatever, was still easily hitting like 60, 70,000 views. When it was like up to part 70 of Fallout 4 Survival Mode was hitting like 52,000 views and like higher than that. So yeah, there was an awful lot more views going on there. So Fallout 1, while it's done okay for a series, as a Fallout series has done quite poorly, like, and that's a bit disappointing. I'll admit I'm a little bit disappointed, because when we started it, like, the initial response to it when we kicked off was really good. Like, the first part of Fallout, when we started it, that got 183,000 views, which is such a good sign. I thought, okay, that's great. If we can just kind of keep that for a couple of parts, that's spectacular. And, like, you know, that stayed up to, like, 95,000 views into part 2, which is that's a pretty heavy drop-off. That was the first sign things might not be going great. There was a pretty heavy drop-off to part 2, 77,000 on part 3, 61,000 on part 4, but it was still fine. And then it's kind of steadily dropped at that point, and it's kind of kept going down over time. And eventually, I think, like, you know, by part 15 or 16, it'll probably won't even be able to break 30,000. So the audience has dropped off there. Like, I think there was a lot of interest in the novelty value of Fallout 1 from people who were Fallout fans who'd never seen Fallout 1 before. But, like, in some ways, I think also some people who've never played that don't find it that interesting if they're more into modern Fallout. So Fallout slightly underperformed a little bit. And that's, you know, like, if, like, you know, a slightly slower, old-fashioned isometric RPG has, like, done that, not poorly, but that not well when it's Fallout, I strongly suspect, therefore, that isometric RPGs that aren't Fallout would do even worse. So we might, like, you know, maybe like do a one-off multiplayer for Baldur's Gate's sake, as Baldur's Gate 2 especially was a classic in my eyes, but I doubt we'll do a full series. Would you possibly do a Far Harbor level 1 survival thing? The DLC actually starts when you discover the house of the family. You don't actually need to rescue Nick. Ooh, I didn't know that. I did think you actually needed to go and rescue Nick. It's not really planned at some point. Like, I'll probably do it at some point just for fun. I think that'll be an interesting thing to do. But it's not actually planned imminently. Do you have any dirty pleasures in terms of mobile games? Honestly not. Like, I've never been into mobile games at all. Like, you know, I gave, like, Angry Birds a try and didn't find it particularly interesting. And, like, you know, I played a bit of Pokemon Go when it came out just because everyone was doing it. It seemed like, okay, fine, you know, if everyone's jumping off a cliff, I may as well do that too. But, like, I didn't really get into it and I got bored of it pretty quickly. Like, I've never been one for like, mobile phone games. Like, if I'm going around and need to entertain myself with my phone, I'll probably just be reading news articles on it because I'm clearly boring. Is there a plan for the RimWorld series to return when the game comes out? Probably we'll do, like, one more as a RimWorld kind of one-off. That video did pretty well, and I did enjoy playing RimWorld, but it was a bit impenetrable. If they added in, like, a nice tutorial, then that would be lovely. In fact, I think they might have already done so. I swear I heard a while back that was coming imminently, so that's probably already there by now. I'll probably do, like, a one-off when it comes out, but maybe nothing until then. What's your opinion of the Bethesda Creation Club? I'm sure. I mean, like, as a content creator, I have the absolute sympathy with the idea that, like, people who are modders and people who put loads of time into creating really good mods deserve to be paid for their work. But I'm slightly dubious of the idea of, like, an official mod selling service run by Bethesda, because it just, I don't know. I feel like if this could be done in a way as was being run by the modders, I'd probably be behind it. But as it's being run by Bethesda, and I strongly imagine they're going to be taking a very healthy cut of everything, yeah, I'm not convinced. Like, and the thing is, it more concerns me that if the Creation Club worked and people accepted it and it worked nicely, it actively incentivizes Bethesda for making games as unfinished as possible. Because if they come up with a really cool idea for a weapon, like, would they put that in the base game, or would they hold that back to be added in via the Creation Club later? Like, it actively incentivizes you creating, like, a minimum viable product game, create the absolute bare bones of the game you can, and then sell loads of DLC and Creation Club stuff for it later, and that just doesn't sit right with me. I don't think it's a good idea. Has there ever been a time when you got bored or tired of a series and wanted to drop it to start something else? Yeah, Resident Evil 6. So I just stopped after the 5th part and basically concluded in this game is terrible and I refuse to play it anymore. I think that's a good series. I think the Resident Evil 6 series was a fun series with loads of really fun moments in it. But it was only 5 parts. After 5 parts, I just said, this is too terrible. I can't continue. This game is actually awful. Pitch an original Fallout 4 DLC campaign. I always give the same answer to this question, so I'll keep it brief because some people have heard this before. I've always thought you should set a Fallout 4 DLC in England. The interesting thing about England is we have guns, just not very many of them. They're extremely, extremely bloody rare. Like, you know, some police with handguns and rifles and some tasers and whatever, some farmers with shotguns or rifles for sporting purposes, but overwhelmingly there are just not guns in the UK. A gun is something that, like, when we see people with guns on the street, even if it's like police, it's something people don't like, it's something people are scared of. Holding a gun is a mark that you should be afraid of someone. It's not a mark of respect or anything, it's a mark of something we don't like. Like, we actively hate, whenever, like, it goes to the public and people, like, ask the question, like, you know, how would you feel about more armed police on the streets? People's overwhelming response is, I don't want armed police on the streets. Even if it's police, they don't want guns on the street. Full stop. So there's very, very few guns in the UK. So a gun is a very, very powerful thing to have with very limited number of guns available, very limited amounts of ammo available, but holding it would make you a target and a source of fear as well as being a very powerful thing. So I think there would be a really interesting power dynamic around which to build a DLC that felt very different to the normal Fallout experience. The Skyrim playthrough is likely to be a long one. When it's completed, do you have any ideas for some themes or challenge runs? I'll probably go back and do Oblivion next, to be honest. I'll probably just do like my first ever experience of Oblivion, albeit modding it so it doesn't look quite so ugly. But one thing I would be potentially interested in, I've mentioned this before, is I'd love to do, just as like a short series, Skyrim on Legendary difficulty, you only live once. Knowing full well it can't be done, because like, it probably can't be done anyway, but you definitely need to know the game better than me to do it at all. I'd love that to work, but I might just do it as like a joke at some point. Kind of in the same way I did like the all max difficulty Dishonored 2 You Only Live Once run. That was a single episode. I think I could do better than one episode in Skyrim. I think it would be fun. Like, I will probably do that at some point. Based on some of the comments you've made, it seems you're quite the Simpsons fan. What is your favourite season and episode? I can't remember exactly what my favourite season is. I can't remember which episode is in which season. My favourite episode is Homer's Enemy with Frank Grimes, which some people like highlight as like, you know, one of the episodes where it started going wrong, for example. People highlight that as like the beginning of the end for the Simpsons when it started going downhill. I think that's peak Simpsons. I love Frank Grimes. He's a fantastic character, and all the wacky stuff that happens in the episode is just beautiful and perfect. Homer's Enemy is my favourite episode of The Simpsons by a long, long way. But other than that, I really like the Halloween specials. I think the Halloween specials are great, and they're just kind of perfectly formed. Like the political one, where Homer gets abducted by aliens and then they replace Bill Clinton and... was it Al Gore? No, not Al Gore. Could have been Al Gore. No, Al Gore was... who was the other guy? Bob Dole! Bob Dole, that was it. It was Bill Clinton and Bob Dole. That's it. Thinking Al Gore? No, they're on Bill Clinton and Al Gore on the same side, aren't they? Yeah, it was Bill Clinton and Bob Dole in that episode. That episode, like, because it was like one of 3 stories in the episode, it's only like 8-9 minutes long, that entire story, but it's got so many beautiful things in it. It's just like so many jokes, like the twirling towards freedom, like the I look forward to an orderly election that will avoid the need for a violent bloodbath. You know, refreshingly frank remarks there from Bob Dole. Don't blame me, I voted for Kodos. There's so many. Oh, the bit where Bill Clinton and Bob Dole are wandering around the streets holding hands, and the guy's trying to tell them to stop. There are so many perfect moments in an episode, and it's just squeezed in so tightly. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful little thing. Like, I can't remember which episode that is, but like maybe that is my favourite 8 minutes of The Simpsons. But my favourite entire episode is Homer's Enemy. Could you please make more videos with Claire? Yes, actually, I've actually got some... Well, I mentioned earlier, Claire and I are going to be doing the Star Trek VR video together. After that, I have something else in mind. I don't want to spoil it, but I do actually have a couple of ideas for stuff to do with Claire. Like, now Claire's a bigger part of the channel insofar as, like, now she's doing a lot of really cool work for the channel in the back end. Like, I'd like Claire to be more publicly visible to the channel as well. So, like, me and Claire were discussing that just this week, that, like, we're going to try and bring her into a few more videos to kind of get her more well-known by the channel again. Because it's kind of, it's weird to me. I kind of forget it, but, like, there's loads of, like, because it's, like, the channel's constantly growing and there's, like, you know, 5 to 10,000 new subscribers joining every month. Like, there's a big cohort of people who are now channel subscribers, who are the active current, you know, users and viewers of the channel, who don't know who Claire is. And if I ever were to mention Claire in passing, I would have no idea who that was. So I think we should bring Claire in more often, just so, like, she's known to the community. I completely agree. And ever since you told us the chocolate shoe story, this is the story of how I gave Claire a gift of a chocolate shoe shortly after we'd met, and it slightly freaked her out because she was confused. I've never been able to get that story out of my head. Can we please get editing Claire's perspective of that story? Go ahead, Claire. Why don't you tell the nice people what was so wrong about being given a chocolate shoe, which I think was a very thoughtful gift.
There were two things that were quite weird for me about the chocolate shoe when I first got it. The first thing was that John got it as a reference to an earlier conversation that we had in which we had joked about a chocolate shoe, and I totally did not remember that reference, so it was very weird to be presented with this chocolate shoe. The other thing was that it was in fact a tiny football boot, which I'm assuming Thorntons sell because parents want to buy their kids chocolate when they do well at football or something. And as someone who doesn't really do sports, it was quite weird to get a football shoe as a present. And I think John enjoys reminding me of my confusion and of how weirded out I was more than he was actually offended that I found it weird at the time.
And would you consider doing some streams where you just have a look at a series of games in order to kind of play them for a little bit and then ask the chat whether to move on or not? The thing is, the whole point of the live streams, as far as I'm concerned, is like, I get to pick a game I know is going to work for a live stream, and then sit down with it for a few hours, and then, like, properly get to grips with it. And, like, it's the stuff I pick to make in live streams rather than videos, because videos is where, like, it works better if it's edited down, but, like, and I can make something, like, really nice out of, like, you know, an hour and a half or 2 hours worth of footage. Whereas, like, a live stream event, I want to be a game where I know I can play, like, solidly for 4 hours, and it's more of an ongoing thing, which is why I think Stellaris, for example, is working really nicely. So, I'm not sure that format works for me for a live stream, I'm afraid. If you come to Toronto or Ontario in general, would you consider having a fan meetup? I'd need to consider having a fan meetup in general. I still haven't actually, like, had the guts to do a proper fan meetup properly. I might do one at EGX this year. Kind of, because I did attend the Nerd Cubed fan meetup at EGX Rest this last year. So, like, I kind of did one, like, informally as a test drive there. So maybe I'll do an EGX this year, we'll have to see. Could we ever see a video of your setup, just out of curiosity? Yes, in fact, I'm planning to, I know I've been saying this for a while, I am planning to at some point make a little kind of, like, just a series of short videos, like, introducing, like, how to YouTube a little bit, just, like, you know, in terms of, like, the kit and how it works and stuff, which I would kind of also go over, like, my kit and, like, the kit you'd need and stuff. So, yeah, I'm intending to make a video that's something of that nature. And someone has asked a question who is actually the current owner of the unofficial Miniaturina Discord server. Yes, I know I owe you a response. I'm going to get back to you. Short answer, yes, I see no reason why we wouldn't just basically move in and turn the unofficial one into the official one. But I will get back to you on that. If someone told you they watched your speed at 2x times, would you consider it a compliment or an insult? I'd just consider it with confusion. I think I speak quite fast. I imagine, like, if you turn me to 2x speed, it would just go a bit chipmunky and probably be quite hard to understand. Are you planning on finishing the Hitman full story videos? Honestly, no. Like, I just never got around to the Japan one at the time, and, like, I think they were good videos. I think they were actually good videos. But, like, Hitman in general, like, it's kind of, it's fizzled out for me at this point, to be honest. Like, I'm going to do, actually, I've already recorded, and I think you're going to see later tonight, or if this comes out on Friday, you saw yesterday, I did the most recent elusive target, because that was a bit more interesting, where the elusive target was actually properly anonymous and elusive, which is, to my mind, how it should have been all along, but never mind. So I did that one, because I thought that was a bit more interesting. But I'm pretty much done with Hitman Series 1. I'm just going to wait for what IO are going to do next now. Though it's great news that they're now independent. They've walked away with the IP. So, yeah, it would be really lovely to see what they're planning to do next. In a recent Patroncast, you discussed what was the most important Roman development. On a similar note, what is the most important Hellenic one? I would say democracy. Democracy, but in the sense that it didn't work. People just kind of forget this. Athenian democracy was a really, really stupid form of democracy. In particular, for those who don't know, basically, there was a lot of referendums, or referenda, I suppose. There were referenda all the time. Constantly people were meeting up and there was like, you know, motions put forward and there were popular votes on it. But this just led to wildly inconsistent government where one day one group of people would vote for one thing, the next day they'd decide to vote against it again and then it had to be called off. And yeah, Athenian democracy is fascinating to actually just kind of look at what it did, because by all accounts it was just a bit of a wacky, inconsistent mess, and basically just demonstrates, sure, the Athenians and the Greeks in general just kind of invented democracy, but they also proved why direct democracy is a terrible idea and we should never do it. Is there a chance that at some point you could go through Skyrim reading some of the books? Because some of them are quite great and remind me of the early Discworld books. So even if you don't post it to YouTube, read the Argonian accounts and A Dance in Fire for yourself. Like, I see like a lot of effort's been put into those books. It's just, there's so bloody many of them, and I have no way of knowing when I start reading them which ones are going to be good or not. So like, I could like go through a bookshelf reading one by one, find the good one, and then start to read it. But like, I could do that for like an hour and not necessarily get anything productive out of it in terms of videos. Like, in terms of making videos, it's not a very efficient thing to do. And I think watching me read, well, I was about to say watching me read words off a page probably isn't a particularly good video, but then the visual novels always do very well. So, I don't know. Possibly. My instinct says I don't think it would make a good video, unfortunately. How many times have I completed Fallout 4 and what is my total current hours? I don't think I've actually completed it any more times than you've seen. I think like all the stuff I've done in Fallout 4 has been recorded. So that is first time through No Guns Survival. Technically, Nuclear Level 1 Survival isn't really done because it was just one bit of DLC. So I suppose only 3 times, though I have seen someone else playing the Minutemen ending, so I've seen all the endings. And I just checked my playtime on Steam. It is 392 hours. Have you ever played Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning? I have not. I've heard, to be honest, I've heard mixed things about it. I've heard some good things and some people just thought it was a bit bleh. So I think it is sitting on a long list somewhere, but honestly, you're not going to see it anytime soon. Greetings, John. Do you think cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin are the next form of mainstream payment mechanism? Probably not. To my mind, I would suspect that cryptocurrencies will undergo a complete collapse in confidence at some point, rather than becoming mainstream, if I had to guess. I admittedly do not have a huge amount of evidence to back that up. It's just, to my mind, if you're going to kind of ask me, is something that's a cryptocurrency online going to ever hit a mainstream payment mechanism? I don't see any reason why it would, when traditional payment mechanisms are becoming easier and easier and easier to use online already, and loads of websites are making it easier and easier and easier to use mainstream payment mechanisms. Like when we've got a situation where like online now, like big retailers like Amazon have like purchase and get delivered with a single click, and like in shops you've now got near field communication, so you can just basically tap a card against something and you've paid for it already. Like, I don't see what the point of Bitcoin in that universe is. Like, traditional payment solutions are getting easier and easier, so I just don't see what function they fulfill, really. I watched the History of Fallout video collaboration you all made for the Lone Vault Wanderer. Did you meet Gopher? No, all of that was actually done online only. All of us just recorded our little parts for that one-on-one. I just kind of did it as a favour to him and to the Fallout, like various Fallout communities in general. I think I just recorded that on my computer, emailed him the sound file, he just stitched it all together. I never met any of those guys. In fact, I don't think I even actually spoke to any of them. I think it was all arranged by email, and the scripts are all handled by email, so I don't think we even spoke to each other during that process. Have you seen the Many True Nerd Fallout multiplayer animation on YouTube? I have. I love it. And I also find it really hilarious that it's got more views on it than most of my own Fallout videos, because obviously, like, I think it must rank like #1 in the world if you search Fallout multiplayer. So therefore it gets loads and loads and loads of traffic off that. So yeah, it is a fan video that has significantly outdone 99% of videos on the channel it's a fan video for, which is hilarious. Do you ever get angered by historical accuracies in games or movies to the point it greatly lessens your enjoyment? In games, probably not so much. I just kind of find it funny. Like, I've never seen something that's really pushed me over the line in like a game as far as I can remember. Like, sometimes it's not so much inaccuracy as laziness that bugs me. Like, the most recent episode, well, not the most recent episode, like a couple of episodes of Doctor Who ago, when it was the Roman episode, the Eaters of Light episode, like, I just thought that was so bad because it was so lazy. It was just like, you know, we're not going to bother learning anything about Roman culture or Roman military structure or anything. You know, screw it. We'll just have them basically speak generic. You know, we'll basically just make them generic blokes in a cave. They don't need to, you know, there's nothing particularly Roman that we need to bother. It's just, it was lazy. It's laziness rather than accuracy that bugs me. How does a Total War version of Star Trek or Mass Effect sound? I don't know whether they would necessarily work that well. Like, I think, like, the two periods of history I would like to see Total War in, I'd like to see Total War go back historical again. Like, I think it's, I'm not convinced I like the idea that, you know, it's going to be a full trilogy by the sounds of it of Total War Warhammer games. I feel like it could have been done with just one in DLC, to be honest. I would prefer to see ancient Greek Hellenic Total War or World War One Total War, because I feel like, you know, trenches and kind of, because, like, I think kind of people misunderstand the trench situation, because it's like, you know, it's very easy to just imagine when we talk about trench warfare, there's just a great big long trench and a great big long trench, but, like, the trenches were a great big spider's web of trenches, and where, you know, they, you know, the warfare was very asymmetrical, and, you know, spotter planes and all that sort of things, and gas attacks and artillery and innovations, like, you know, new technology like tanks was being invented during World War I and brought in to help kind of resolve blockages that had been created, and barbed wire and machine guns. Like, so much stuff kind of came in. It's like, it's a really fascinating war insofar as, like, the shape of war and what war looks like by the end of World War One was completely different to how it looked at the beginning of World War One. So I would love to see, like, a game that started off in, say, like 1910, say, and was all about, like, you know, shoring up alliances and moving pieces and working on production, and then war breaks out at some point, and it might not break out in the same way as it actually did in World War One. Actually, the players might be different based on what you've done diplomatically, and you could have, like, little skirmishes around the world before that point, and then there's, like, you know, sooner or later a great big world war conflict breaks out, or maybe if you play cards right, actually, like, one of the endings of the game might be you avoid World War One ever happening, but it's really hard to do, and, like, you know, once the war breaks out, innovations come in, like barbed wire, like big machine guns being deployed defensively, like tanks, like spotter planes. And I agree, obviously, some of that already existed, but, like, it's, you know, and gases, chemical warfare basically being invented in some capacity, like, and all that coming in, and then the other side having to invent stuff in order to counteract it. I just think it sounds really, really fascinating. Plus, population management will be interesting, because it was such a destructive war. Like, literally, how many soldiers you have and what population you've got left would be a big part of it, and blockading and, like, you know, starving out civilian populations could be a big part of it. I just think it's a really fascinating topic. It could be a very different Total War game, and I'd love to see Total War World War One, or Total World War One, or World Total War One, or, okay, maybe just don't let me name it though. Which sci-fi race would you like to exist in our galaxy? The Asari! Why, you know why. You recently mentioned that the Romans had some bad experiences with battles before breakfast. I was referring there to the Battle of the Trebia. You're asking what battle I was referring to. Battle of the Trebia against Hannibal, where basically Hannibal baited the Romans to cross an icy cold river first thing in the morning before they'd had their breakfast, which didn't turn out well. It left them very, very cold and very, very weak and very, very easily torn apart. Would you rather fight 1,000 duck-sized Benors or one horse-sized Benor? Well, probably one horse-sized Benor, because a horse-sized Benor is basically no bigger than a normal-sized Benor, but 1,000 duck-sized Benor still probably presumably have tiny axes, so they would just chop my shins apart. So, yeah, one horse-sized Benor. I'm interested in getting into classical literature. Is there anything you'd recommend starting with? You can't go wrong with the Iliad and the Aeneid. In that order, read the Iliad first, because then it makes a lot more sense. Actually, you need to read the Iliad and the Odyssey before you really get to the Aeneid. The Aeneid makes a lot more sense once you understand both of the Homeric epics. Those are good starting points, I'd say. Though actually, are they? They're quite long. There's long sections of the Iliad where if you don't know the context, you might be a bit confused by it. It might not be that interesting. Maybe start with Greek. Yeah, maybe start with the Greek tragedies. You know, some of the more kind of rapid-paced tragedies. Whether that be, I was about to say Antigone, but never see Antigone staged. No one ever stages Antigone correct, 'cause everyone misunderstands Antigone. Maybe Medea? Hippolytus is good. Hippolytus is good, and there's lots of action in Hippolytus. Hippolytus is a really fast-moving play. Yeah, maybe some of the Euripidean tragedies. Or actually, if you can bloody find it ever put on, Sophocles' Ajax or Philoctetes. Though no one ever stages Sophocles as Philoctetes, so don't get your hopes up. Have you ever done a challenge run for Total War? Honestly, no. It's kind of my relaxing game. Like, Total War isn't the game I really do challenge run. It's a game I kind of know well enough to play in the highest difficulties. But, like, I do it as my relaxing game, so I've never really done challenge runs in it, really. Has there ever been a game you've wanted to put on the channel but feel you can't because you knew it wouldn't react well or you knew there'd be backlash from the fans? See Metal Gear Solid. As Nerdkeepers is at CoxCon this year, is there any chance that you and Matt will be there as well? I don't know about Matt, you'd have to ask him, but I will not be because I have not been invited. Have you ever written any poetry? Probably when I was at school and forced to do it as part of an assignment, but no, I've never been one for writing poetry. I used to write like a bit of prose just for fun, but I've never really written poetry. Have you played Seven Wonders Duel, the two-player version of Seven Wonders? I have not. I've played the base game with the expansion that lets you add the 8 players in the 8th Wonder, but I've never played the dual version, I don't think. What's the most humanising thing you've read or learnt about the ancient Greeks or Romans during your studies? It's probably the comedy. I always enjoyed studying comedy. Comedy is very humanising because comedy is very universal. Like, you know, if you read a lot of Greek and Roman comedy, what you discover is the Greeks and the Romans, at the height of their power and civilization, they thought that poo was funny. They thought that farting was funny. They thought that penises were really bloody funny. Yeah, and that kind of, you know, in terms of humanisation and what more can you do? Like, basically every society ever agrees that poo and bums and farting are funny, pretty much. So, yeah, it's the comedy. It's the comedy. When you get down to it, extremely puerile comedy works, no matter where you are in history. For the entirety of human civilization, poo has been funny. What would be your top 5 movies of last year? Oh, honestly, I don't go to the cinema that often. Claire goes to the cinema more often than me. Hang on, I need to figure out what... Wait, last year? Do you mean... Of last year. Right, hang on. I need to look up film releases in 2016 to figure out which I actually bothered going to see. I've literally just googled 2016 films. I'm just going to go over the list of, like, the ones at the top to see which ones I bothered going to see. Rogue One, a Star Wars story. That was okay. It was better than Episode 7. I'd probably have to put on my top 10 just because I probably didn't even see 10 films last year. Captain America Civil War, I saw that. That was good. I can't find any more films I saw. I'm going through the list and I can't find any more than I actually bloody saw. You have no idea how rarely I bother going to the cinema. I really don't. Okay. Yeah, sorry. I think that might have been it. I might have actually only gone to see Star Wars and Captain America Civil War at the cinema last year. So those are my top 2 films of the year. I'm looking to try and get into Doctor Who. There's so much to choose from. I would start off just with the first series of New Who, which was the Christopher Eccleston series. It's a short series because there's basically only one series that he's in it. So try that because it's only, I think it's like 12 or 13 episodes. If you like that, then go into the rest of it. But try that out because it's pretty damn good. There's some really good episodes in that series. Like, if you like that, then go on to Tennant because there was loads of Tennant. Like, Tennant was in like for like 3 series, then a bunch of specials, and then Matt Smith was in for like... Matt Smith was weird because Matt Smith had a load of like series that were like half series and stuff, so I can't even remember how that broke. I think he was like for 4 series or something, and Capaldi's had like, I think 3. I think this is the 3rd series of Capaldi. I can't remember, it's felt like forever because Capaldi's series have all been terrible. But yeah, start with Eccleston and see if you like that. If I had to choose between saving Bethesda or Paradox from one of them being dropped into a volcano, which would I save? Well... It's hard to answer because if Bethesda go in, does the Obsidian develop New Vegas survive? Because I guess I have to... just in case New Vegas is at risk, I'll have to say Paradox have to go into the volcano. Just because, like, the only Paradox game I'm properly addicted to right now is Stellaris. Whereas Bethesda, I'd be very, very sad to lose Skyrim and all the Fallout games. And how many subscribers do you have from the Czech Republic? Let's find out. I don't think it's a huge number. I've never seen them showing up high up on the list. Oh, it's a really small number, actually. It's only 560 in the entire world right now. Out of almost 270,000 subscribers, it is only 560. Thank you for the great videos. Please watch this short video about tea. I've watched the short video about tea, which is likening tea to consent. I quite like that. I'm going to link to it below so everyone else can also watch the T-Consent video. John, would you say that Roman civilization was ever a democracy? No, I don't think it's fair to call... In fact, actually, despite what I said earlier, it's not even fair to call Hellenic, weird, direct democracy referendum frenzy democracy either, because you can't say that the people are voting on something when you take so much of your population and you say they're not people. Like, when you say huge numbers of people are slaves, or they're resident foreigners, or metics, or whatever, and those people are not allowed to vote, you don't have a democracy. Like, if you've disenfranchised such a huge swathe of people, you're saying only a small number of privileged people are allowed to vote on things. Even if there is a free, fair, open vote, and that's questionable because corruption was rampant, then even if you do have that vote, you haven't got a democracy, you've got an oligarchy, because a small number of privileged few are the ones casting the vote. So yeah, probably it's not fair to call anything in the ancient world a democracy as we'd call it today. There's certainly a better case to be made for ancient Greece, where, as I say, referendum frenzy means that at least, like, you know, a mass of people, albeit only a proportion of the total population, are allowed to, like, get things done, and they can actually vote on big things and make big things happen. In Rome, less so. There's definitely more ways in which Rome is much more of an indirect democracy, if you can call it a democracy at all, where they elected people who went on to do things, rather than using votes to decide things at all. With E3 behind us, what game or games caught your eye? What was good? Ooblets looks really good. I saw that rezzed, but I saw it again at E3. So Ooblets looks really good. I think that Ubisoft pirate thing, what was it called? Crossbones, Cross and Bones, Skull and Bones, Skull and Crossbones, Cross and Skull Bones, whatever it was called. Whatever that was called, I thought that actually looked pretty darn good, all things considered. Yep, looking forward to that, sure. So yeah, I'd say that's one AAA and one indie I thought looked particularly good. What's next in Skyrim? Well, I do want to do all of, like, the guilds, for example, and obviously all of the DLC as well, and I have in mind where I kind of want, like, the arc of the characters to go as well, but I don't want to say anything because it would spoil it. I was planning to do a permadeath Mass Effect run. Wonder if you have any tips. Honestly, I don't think it's too hard to do permadeath in Mass Effect, just because, you know, it's a cover shooter. Well, after the first game, it's a cover shooter. Well, in the first game, actually, it doesn't matter. In the first game, you can make yourself tanky as anything. Just basically take a character with loads of electronics and give yourself all the shields in the world, and you should be pretty fine. As long as you just stay at the back, you should be absolutely fine. And in the second and third game, it's more of a cover shooter, so you should be alright as long as you're careful. Probably you're better off going with an infiltrator class in the second and third games, just so you can keep your distance. But honestly, as long as you're careful, I don't think it's actually the most tricky thing in the world. John, what's your favourite album? Hard one for me to pick just one. Probably They Might Be Giants Flood. So many classic songs on there. What would you have done to prevent the decline of the Roman Empire? You can't. You can't prevent the decline of a massive empire. Empires eventually just slowly fizzle out of energy and get beset by corruption. Like, you know, because there's no one thing I could rule on. Like, you can't just stand, like, you know, in Rome and say, okay, everyone stop being corrupt. Okay? Everyone just stop being corrupt, please. Because, like, you know, the corruption alone, sooner or later, will bring everything down. Like, any massive empire will eventually stagnate and start breaking apart. Like, no one could have stopped it. You could have slowed it down through various mechanisms, but you almost... There's no point... Actually, I'm not sure whether the question now is, would it have been right to do so, or could it possibly have been done? You could have slowed it down, but I'm not sure it would have done much good, to be honest. Will we be seeing Life is Strange Before the Storm when it comes out at the end of August? I'm not really sure about Life is Strange Before the Storm. Like, now they've said there's no time travel in it, which makes sense, because, you know, it's about Chloe, not Max. But, like, if, like, it's Before the Storm and there's no time travel, there's no gameplay. Like, pretty much the only gameplay in Life is Strange was the time travel puzzles, which were really fun. But, like, if it's not, then it's just basically... I guess it's kind of at that point just like a Telltale game, because you're just walking around solving little puzzles and making speech choices, where the speeches, even more than a Telltale game, can't really have any consequences, because we know things have a preordained conclusion, because the status quo that we find actually in Life is Strange needs to be ended on. So Chloe's got to survive, and presumably Rachel has to end up either dead or soon to be dead. So, like, I find it an odd one. Plus, it bugs me that the voice actress changed because, you know, they decided to use a non-union voice actress, and they clearly didn't get a particularly good one because she doesn't actually sound very much like Chloe did in the first game. That kind of bugs me and leaves a bit of a bad taste in the mouth, the fact that they did that. So, I don't know. I might skip it and just wait for the proper Life is Strange 2. Do you think you'd try out Tropico? Yes, actually. It used to be lower down the long list, but now that, like, you know, things like Stellaris and Total War do so well, I think maybe like a Tropico live stream at some point, and maybe like a little midweek miniseries for Tropico will be just the thing, yes. Due to all the attacks in London, I do worry. I don't know London amazingly well. Don't worry, we're way up north from where any of the attacks will ever be hit. Like, all the attacks in London will be, like, in Zone 1, i.e. in the centre of London. So if terrorists are going to attack something, they're going to attack, like, in the centre, where there's lots of people, and it's well known, and there'll be lots of publicity and stuff. Like, we're way further north than that. We've never been anywhere near any of the terrorist attacks, so seriously, you don't need to worry about us in that regard. If you had to live as a citizen in one of the cities you've conquered in one of your Total War series, including the improvements you've made in the January poster there, which would you choose? Rome, in the Rome Total War series, immediately after it was conquered by me, because I'm a dog person, and that city was filled with just tens of thousands of puppies. Some suggestions: Wasteland 1 and 2. For Wasteland 1, see the problem with Fallout 1 earlier in this Patroncast. For Wasteland 2, yes, I do agree, I'll almost certainly do a series on that at some point or other. Never played it before myself. Sins of a Solar Empire. Not played it. Me and Dan and Matt were gonna play it for Nerdcubed Online before that got scuttled for the moment at least. So if that ever comes back, we'll probably do it then. Lord of the Realm, Total War-ish games. Don't know anything about them. We'll add them to the long list. And the Metro series, absolutely, like Stalker and The Witcher, going to be candidate for a mini-series at some point. But honestly, Stalker and Witcher, having been requested a lot more, will come before it. Do you think you'll ever have a European merch site? I assume this comes out of, the fact that for people in Europe, the delivery charges for the merchandise were higher than I'd like. I'd love to be able to have, like, merch sites everywhere so the shipping wouldn't be so bad for the European folks. The problem is, like, to make merchandise work at all, there has to be, like, a certain amount of it sold. Like, people won't work with us unless we, like, have, we can say, okay, we're going to sell this many shirts and this many mugs. If we have, like, one operation in America, another in Europe, and then, like, one tiny one in Australia, say, then it's quite possible the European one would never sell enough that anyone would be willing to work with us. So the only thing we'd be able to do in Europe would be, like, a print-on-demand service, and the quality for those guys is so much lower, I didn't really want to do that. So we can't rule this out for the future, but there are reasons why we're just doing one in one place, and it just turned out to be in America, because, like, well over 60% of the entire user base of the channel in terms of the subscribers are in the US and Canada, which is why we went for the Americans. Do you have any plans for post-Fallout 4 You Only Live Once? Oh, blimey, let me do Fallout 4 You Only Live Once first. That's going to be a long series. No, I've no idea what's after that. What's your opinion on the new Crash N. Sane trilogy? I'm probably going to play it. I think we've actually already put in a request for review code for when it's coming around, but the thing is, I was never, like, a PS1 player. I had, like, a Super NES, then N64, so I've never played any of the Crash Bandicoot games before, so for me it's going to be brand new, so I've no idea what to expect. And on the topic of PS4, did you get much use out of your PS4 console? Honestly, since I went PC, I don't get much use out of, like, either of my consoles. Like, literally, this came up this morning, because I put Red Dead Redemption into my Xbox One, and I had to pull, therefore, the previous disc out of it. And I thought, okay, what's actually in my Xbox One right now? It was the demo disc that Bethesda sent me for Fallout 4, the promotional version they sent me before Fallout 4's launch. So basically, I haven't taken a disc out or put a new disc into my Xbox One since November 2015. Now, that's a little bit unfair, because of course, like, since then I've downloaded some games, like, I'm pretty sure, I've played Overwatch on the Xbox One during the free weekend, and I got, what was it? Final Fantasy 15, was it? Was that the most recent one? Final Fantasy 15? That was on the Xbox One, just because that was the version I could get off Square Enix. For some reason, they had the Xbox One version. I think it's because the PC version wasn't coming out till after the console version for whatever reason. So I had that on it, and I think I played what was it called? Hand of Fate, Jewel of Fate. That one with the no, Jewel of the Fates was the soundtrack in Star Wars Episode 1. Good song, not a great movie otherwise. But no, Hand of Fate, that card game that was really, really damn good. I think that was in like Games with Gold, so I got that through that. But like other than those like 4 games, I don't think I've really used the X. I think that's pretty much all I've used my Xbox One for in a year and a half. Overwatch free weekend, Hand of Fate while it was free with Games with Gold, Fallout 4 when the Xbox One version was the only version I could get my hands on pre-launch, and the Final Fantasy 15, and now Red Dead Redemption being played in the Xbox One because it makes the frame rate a bit higher because it's a bit more powerful than the old Xbox 360. So, yeah, honestly, I don't get much use out of the consoles. Now I've kind of gone over to the PC. Based on your commentary in Rome Total War and during the Ultimate Epic Battle Simulator Ultimate Battle of Good vs. Evil, what do you think indirect fire means? I'm pretty sure it doesn't mean what you think it means. Surely indirect fire means, like, indirectly fire. Like, I always assume, like, I guess I don't know what direct fire is. Like, I assume there's melee where you close and stab people, or there's indirect fire where you're standing back and like tossing in projectiles with, like, I don't know, javelins or bows or whatever. Like, I think I blame Advance Wars for that. I'm going to blame Advance Wars for that. Because in Advance Wars, they absolutely use the term indirect fire to describe artillery and rocket units. Basically, anything that shoots at a square that's not the square next to it is described as indirect fire. So, possibly, if I'm wrong, and I'm using the wrong terminology, I'm going to blame Advance Wars for that. Please rate my method of making a cup of tea. Boil water in a kettle, of course, that's fine. Put Lion's Gold Blend Pyramid Bag in 24-ounce mug. Shouldn't be Lion, should be PG Tips. Fine, but Pyramid Bag, that's good. Pour boiled water over bag until mug is 3/4 full. Yep, fine, acceptable. Microwave tea for 2... Why are you microwaving it? You've just... The water's already boiled. You just said it was boiled in a kettle. Why are you boiling it? Cover with a paper towel. Why? Why is it in the microwave? Why are you microwaving it? Why is there a paper towel? Fill mug the rest of the way up with water. No, then there's no room for milk. What do you... Microwave for a further 30 seconds. What are you doing? Remove the bag. What bag? What? Oh, the tea bag? Oh, sorry, remove it now after the 3 minutes of microwaving. Oh, well, that's very important. Sorry, you got me confused because there's talk of a paper towel, so God knows you probably shoved a plastic bag in there too. Pour a splash of skimmed milk, no, should be semi-skimmed, in the tea until it's colour of toffee. I'd prefer it a little lighter than that, but that's fine. Stir a bit. I don't know where the button to ban people on Patreon is, but rest assured, as soon as I find it, I will do so. Could you consider getting a stand-sit desk? Pricey, yes, but it's worth not getting into the probably hundreds of health problems associated with sitting as much as you do. I hate standing desks. I really do. Like, I do make an effort to stretch my legs a lot while I'm kind of doing stuff, so hopefully I'm fine. Do you have any must-buy games off the Steam Summer Sale? There are a few bits floating around. Turing Test was cheap. Deadly Premonition is extremely cheap. That's probably the best one I've seen, actually. Deadly Premonition for, I think, £2 is amazing. I recorded saying a while ago, I think on podcasts, that YouTube Red makes up a fair percentage of your income from the channel. Has that changed? No, actually it's got more severe. As the ad revenue situation's got worse, Red's actually got better and better. So I really hope YouTube doesn't cancel YouTube Red, because YouTube Red makes a really, really healthy contribution at this point. It's kind of ridiculous, in fact. After seeing the Nuke game you were playing, I assume you're referring to First Strike Final Hour, I would recommend DEFCON. Not sure how well it would do as a YouTube video, fairly sure you'll enjoy it at least. Very well, we will add that to the long list, as I really did enjoy First Strike Final Hour. How many times... Ooh, this is the good question. This is a very good question. And I was kind of hoping no one would ask this, but I'm going to answer it honestly. How many times have you accidentally killed Benor, but then reloaded and cut it out as if nothing happened? Once. Once I did. Because it was a really undramatic, boring death, which was like, me and Benor were just swinging a Falmer, and like Benor happened to go down onto his knees just as I was swinging, and I happened to just glance him, and it just killed him in one blow. And that was it. And it was so, like, boring and unremarkable. And I wasn't even commentating the fight, because it was a boring fight. So, like, it would have just been, like, me talking, and then a cut to silence, and then Benor just being knocked to the ground. And it was just, like, so... It would have been so weird and anticlimactic and dull. I just said, okay, I can't have that. And, like, I have an idea where I want the Benor plot to go. Yeah, like, I have an idea for where I want that story to go. Because at this point, it's not really the story of the dragons or the Dragonborn anymore. It's the story of Benor. And I know where I want that story to actually go. So, like, it's only once, but it has happened, and I will admit that to you. I will admit that to you here. on Patreon. At one point, like, while I was just finishing off some Falmer in a bit that wasn't even in the final video, I accidentally whacked Benor with a stick. Quandary for Fallout 4, you only live once. Say your base HP is currently 100, but you're wearing an item that gives you up to 120, i.e. with plus endurance, I'm supposing. You take 110 hit points of damage. Yes, we've always said that if you're wearing that endurance item of clothing, that is acceptable, and then as long as I never take that item of clothing off, then I'm allowed to keep going. That's kind of, we can follow the rules of the original series for that, it's absolutely fine. What would you like to see in Fallout 5? Basically, I just want to see the gunplay and crafting and junk system from Fallout 4 mixed with more of a faction, open world, open quest system of Fallout New Vegas. That's all I want. Just mix those two together. That's fine. Elder Scrolls 6, just give me prettier, bigger Skyrim. Alright, that's fine. Don't bother changing them. Just give me bigger, prettier Skyrim. Stay as far away from online as possible. Pretend Elder Scrolls Online never happened. Literally just give me Skyrim, but more, and I'm a happy bunny. Have you ever thought about doing a series about games that feature ancient Greek terminology? Like Borderlands contains many Greek mythological names, or Mass Effect has Cerberus, Doom has Deimos and Phobos. It's a nice idea. I'm not sure if I can get like a series out of it or anything. Like, you know, when I see Greek references in games, I point them out. I'm not sure that's enough for me to like make a dedicated series or anything about it. Bit of a visual one. If you plotted your level of knowledge against a graph, what would it look like? The graph is, yeah, my level of knowledge versus period of history. This one's pretty simple, to be honest. Basically, between the years of approximately 500 BC and maybe 200 AD, I know things pretty damn well. Before that point, I know things probably better than the layman, but still not spectacular. It's never my specialisation. After that point, the thing I've always said before is there's a gap in my knowledge between the fall of the Western Roman Empire and the invention of the Spice Girls in 1995. I stand by that. My knowledge actually after that point, like after Roman Imperial history, up to very recent history, becomes a little bit patchy. Like, there's little spots I know quite well, but like at that point, like I couldn't put it on a graph anymore. Basically, just assume anything outside of the classics is very hit and miss for me. Some tiny bits I'll know spectacularly well, some tiny bits I'll know not at all. I'd love a dramatic telling of the first time you and Claire met. There's only so dramatic I can make it, because we met at a coffee shop in London when we both had gone to a writers' event. So literally we both showed up with laptops and we bought sandwiches at Costa and like coffees or drinks or whatever, and we sat down next to each other and probably didn't say a word to each other, and then like met up again later after that point. In fact, I think actually the very first time we met, in inverted commas, I think we were actually sitting next to each other, but I don't think we actually said a word to each other. And we just sat down and we both like sat in silence and kind of were looking at our computers. So that pretty much accurately predicts how the next 8 years would go too, in many ways. But yeah, we met. There's only so dramatic you can make that, unfortunately. You could put an epic score over the top of it, but we're still just sitting next to each other in silence using computers. The new Assassin's Creed Origin is confirmed to be in Egypt in 49 BC. Any chance we'll see it on the channel, maybe even with historical commentary. I doubt I'd do a series. Like, I've realised, like, while I think Assassin's Creed is okay, I don't enjoy it enough to sustain a full series. Like, I get bored of it. So, like, I'll probably just do it as, like, a one-off when it comes out, or maybe just like a few episodes and draw a line somewhere, because I just don't enjoy the franchise enough to do it as like a full series. Sorry, I just don't. And like 49 BC Egypt, I will know a bit about, and like I'll be able to provide some interesting commentary historically, but not a huge amount. Plus, of course, like Assassin's Creed plays with bizarro bonkers history that doesn't make any sense and has no bearing on reality, because the vast majority of its history is about like this Templar assassin business that has no grounding in reality whatsoever, and literally every historical figure and event of historical significance was actually secretly a Templar or an assassin, or it was a Templar plot to get hold of a golden apple that would let them control the BBC or whatever the golden apple does. I don't bloody know. So kind of it's bizarro stupid history anyway, so I don't know. Maybe as a one-off, but I don't think it's going to be great. Would you ever do a challenge run in Fallout 4 to only advance special stats and not actually take any perks? I don't... This is one of those things, like... It sounds like a fun, interesting challenge, but I don't think it's interesting enough to sustain a series. It's like when people say, like, one of the ones I get, like, asked a lot is, like, Fallout 4 with big guns only. Like, and it sounds fun, but then you think, like, the length of time it takes to do a Fallout 4 run-through, even if I was doing it quite quickly, I don't think it would be that interesting. And like taking perks out of it actually makes the game less interesting because perks make the game interesting. Whereas like, you know, this is the equivalent of like what some people say where like you never level up. If you just like, you know, you don't take any of the perks whatsoever, like you're just not allowed to take perks. I guess this is a variant of that. Like, I think that makes the game less interesting rather than more. So while I think it's an interesting challenge, or rather it's a difficult challenge, I don't think it makes a good series. What do you think of the Patreon rebrand? I'm ambivalent, to be honest. It's about the same. Like, one of the things that's very, very nice, I should have mentioned this earlier, we're going to do the audio thing. There's like a private audio sort of RSS thing. I don't know. I don't know how it works. But yeah, there's actually like a proper private audio thing built into Patreon. I think that's new. So we're going to use that for the first time this month. In fact, you probably know that because if you noticed it was there, you might already be using it and have been doing for the last hour and a half or whatever. So you probably know that already. So like the new stuff in terms of new functionality is nice. But yeah, the actual UI, I'm totally ambivalent. How many games do you regret purchasing or paying full price for? Zelda Twilight Princess. God, that was bad. Like, so bad. Twilight Princess is such a bad game. It is a bad Zelda. I think it's the worst Zelda game I've ever played. And I bought that full price for the GameCube at the end of its life. But it's genuinely a bad game. Like, it drags on for ages. The Tears of Light, whatever it is, nonsense, takes ages and is really boring. The game, when you go into the shadow areas, is really visually uninteresting. Like, the only good bit is Midna as a character is great fun, and Zant as a villain is great fun, but he's barely in the damn thing. There's loads of, like, really slow grinding areas. The dungeons are poorly designed and uninteresting next to previous entries into the franchise. It's just a bad game overall. What's your view on review copies? How do you feel about them being free? I feel that reviewers should have to pay for two reasons. One, if they have to actually pay for the game, they give a much better judgment as the value proposition. And two, they're less obligated to rate games higher to keep a publisher happy or to keep receiving free games. The thing is, if you say reviewers have to receive and pay for games at full price, then 90, like, I don't know what proportion of reviewers are like the number of YouTubers and streamers or whatever who are like, you know, rolling in money and buying Lamborghinis with their name on the license plate is very, very small. The vast majority of YouTubers are mid-sized. And the thing is, if I had to, like, you know, if I wanted to cover a AAA game and I had to go out and pay £60 or whatever in order to buy that game, it is basically guaranteed that I'm going to lose money on the time I put into it. Because, like, that game, if I'm doing a one-off video, that video is never going to make £60 in ad revenue back. Not a chance is that video going to make £60 in ad revenue back. So basically, I am spending, let's say, 2-3 hours of my time recording it, 2-3 hours of my time editing it, tying up my computer, rendering it, so I can't do anything else while it's being rendered, then uploading it, in order to... So all of that time investment I'm spending in order to lose £10 if I were to make, say, £50 ad revenue back. And that's the point where to say, well, I wouldn't do that anymore then. I won't do AAA games. I'm just going to do nothing but indie games or stuff that's on sale. Like, literally, like, huge numbers of YouTubers, and, you know, there's a great many that are a lot smaller than me, simply, if they had to pay full price for games they came out, they wouldn't be able to cover them. They wouldn't be able to cover them. And then at that point, you're dealing with the only people who would be covering large new releases would be a small elite group of already well-established reviewers. And at that point, you've just created an oligarchy of a small number of people who are the only people who are actually financially able to cover large releases. And that doesn't suit anyone. That doesn't suit the viewers of the smaller channels. It doesn't suit the viewers of the bigger channels because they'll get complacent and there won't be any variety available there. It doesn't suit the publishers because it means there's less eyeballs actually on the game. It would just be appalling for the ecosystem of, like, YouTube and reviewers and gaming media in general. It just simply wouldn't work financially, just numerically. The numbers don't stack up to do that. We've actually ended the point by actually kind of pointing out the same point I did, which is I think every creator should have to pay for their games and have to weigh the cost of purchasing a game against their potential revenue. The problem is 95% of creators are going to come to the conclusion, oh, well, I'm not going to do that then. So you've got this odd situation where publishers would be not giving out copies, and as a result, no one would be playing it aside from, I I don't think anyone wins. No one wins. Like, the only people that win that are a small number of established huge YouTubers for whom purchasing £60 to get a single video out, like, you know, PewDiePie is laughing in that scenario because he can buy anything he wants and make a video, and it will, you know, because of the number of views, it'll easily make the money back and make a huge profit as well. But, like, I'd think you'd have to be, like, I know for a fact I'd lose money on a one-off new release, like, if it was a new release. I think you'd probably have to have like 500,000 subscribers before you'd even consider ever playing a AAA game. And that can't be a healthy place to be. So just numerically, it doesn't stack up. I actually have a ton of Choose Your Own Adventure books from the 80s or 90s when I was a kid. I was about to put them on eBay. Would you like them? No, don't worry. Don't worry. I can get hold of Choose Your Own Adventure books if I need them. But thank you for the offer. That's very generous. You've said in the past there's no legal way of doing Pokemon on YouTube. Yes, indeed, because it's not included in the Nintendo Creator Program. Do you have any idea how some YouTubers do seem to have successful channels with a lot of Pokemon on it? Either they are basically, I guess maybe they're just submitting it to the Nintendo Creator Program and getting approved anyway, in which case the Nintendo Creator Program is just badly managed and doesn't say what's actually up there. Or they're ignoring the Nintendo Creator Program and just playing fast and loose with the rules, and sometimes they're getting content ID'd and sometimes not, and they're getting lucky. But if too, then they're at risk of running into trouble constantly, which I suspect is the case for more of them. They're probably just ignoring the Nintendo Creator Program and just hoping they get away with it. In a previous Patroncast, you've said you're going to do a live end card. I will do a live end card. There will be a live end card at the end of this. Suggestion for Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. Not played it, pretty sure I already own it. We will add it to the long list. I will get around to it at some point. Can we expect Realpolitik to come back at some point? I think it would be great if you played as the Islamic State. You know, I genuinely was tempted. I really wanted to do an Islamic State playthrough of Realpolitik, but I felt that was really crossing the line in terms of comedy. Like, you know, and I wanted the finale, the final episode, to be called Daesh to the Finish. That's what I had all the puns planned out, but like I felt like that was crossing the line, and like if you had like terrorism puns and like you were making jokes about terrorism and stuff, then that's the point where YouTube starts taking a dim view of your channel, and frankly I felt my channel security would have been put at risk for it, which is why I didn't do it. What's your favourite quickie food? Honestly, like, if I want something in a hurry, I don't actually cook something in a hurry. I either kind of, like, go and get a ready meal, or I order food on Deliveroo. I like ordering a nice burger on Deliveroo, because I'm not much of a cook. How long is your current list of recommended games and games you're keeping an eye on? Literally hundreds. It's huge. And I have to go through it occasionally just to make sure we stay on top of it. If you could pick out the perfect setup of legendary drops in Fallout 4, what would it be? I'd love like a full set of Sentinel gear for the armor, because then you've got 90% damage reduction while standing still, which is really, really damn cool. And other than that, just take an instigating, insert powerful single shot weapon here. Instigating Ghost Rifle would be marvellous. Dumbest thing you've ever done in a video game? I bought Advance Wars Days of Ruin. I consider that counts. What mechanic from one game would you like to put into another? Basically, I'd like to take Super Hot VR's time only moves when you're moving and put it into literally every VR game because it makes so much sense. I'd probably put that into Fallout 4 VR, actually. I'd probably make that like the new VATS. I'd simply say, like, in VATS, time is frozen while you're still, but while you're moving, time starts moving again. I'd say that's the new VATS, because Super Hot VR's, like, time still while you're still would be a beautiful VATS system, but sadly I suspect that's not how it's going to work. What would you consider to be the most complete video you've ever done in terms of funniness and actually getting stuff done in the game? I genuinely would actually probably go for Fallout 3, probably, and this is also my favourite video I've ever made, I think, Fallout 3 Kill Everything. The Practical Guide to Parenting, doing the entirety of Andale and also the Tranquility Lane quest as well. I think that's just a great episode where there's loads of progress and also loads of fun stuff in general. Have you ever done Camp Guardian or Help for Halford quest in New Vegas on the channel? I don't think I ever have, actually. I find Camp Guardian really boring. You go ages out of the way to find, like, one guy, then you just kill a bunch of lake lurks in a cave. I just find it's really, really dull. I mean, it's a good place to, like, farm for C4, but other than that, it's just not particularly interesting. How are you, John? I'm good, thanks. How are you? My dream YouTube scenario is crossing you over with What Culture Wrestling guys. It would be a bit of a weird meeting. I don't actually watch any wrestling. Matt at one point, like, asked if I wanted to watch some wrestling with him, but I've never really watched wrestling. I don't really get the appeal. So, sadly, I doubt that's a collab that's ever going to happen. John, your channel seems to have the momentum of a runaway freight train. Why are you so popular? I'd say it's probably because I am taking the... I can't remember what the next line is. It's something to do with telling those fat cats in Washington they can take the tax hikes up their pipes and smoke it or something. I can't remember how it goes. Just if you know the line, pretend I said that. John, if you won $100 million lottery tomorrow, what would you do? I'd be really boring and financially, prudent. I'd, buy a big house and then invest the rest of it prudently. Because I'm really boring like that. I would never be the sort of person who'd, splash out on, massive, stupid yachts or anything. I would just buy a nice, big, sensible, private, detached house and then invest sensibly and live off the interest for the rest of my life doing stuff that made me happy. And I'd probably keep doing this because I like doing this. Do you like or play chess? I do like chess. I'm not sure whether I'm that good at it. I think I'm pretty good at chess. I'm not spectacular. But I do play chess. And, watch this space. Watch this space. There's some chess stuff coming up pretty soon, actually. Watch this space. Can you please work on your internet connection for streaming? Releases related to the panic moments in Stellaris. No, that was not the internet. That was an OBS issue, and I'm trying to figure out what was wrong. But it definitely wasn't the internet. The internet was fine. The problem was the program I was using for streaming over to YouTube, and I'm trying to determine how to fix that now. But it wasn't actually the internet. Though I am actually improving the internet. Anyway, as I said earlier. John, please play sport. Oh, that's so going to be a midweek mini-series at some point, don't you worry. Arkham City series. I'm honestly not enough of a fan of the franchise to do a series on Arkham. I think Arkham Asylum's pretty darn good, if not quite as much of a classic as some people think. But, the biggest problem is, loads of people seem to look at, the fighting in the Arkham games and say, oh, yeah, it was so spectacular. It revolutionised fighting in games. It was amazing. I just think, yeah, it was okay. It was fine. I found it a bit silly that, with a single tap of the stick and a button push, Batman just basically magic teleport backflips from, one side of the battlefield to the other, and that doesn't make much sense to me. I think that it's okay. It's not, anything that's, blew my mind or anything, but some people act like it does, so whatever. Yeah, you know what? Honestly, you're more likely to get a one-off Arkham Asylum at one point than anything else. Though, as I say, you do actually have Batman Arkham VR coming up this weekend. Would you ever do a podcast on Greek Roman history literature? I would love to do something like that, but because I have no idea how many people would actually like it, I don't know when we would dare get round to that. Now that Friday the 13th is released and bug fixed, would you please do another video on it? Maybe a Patreon game. Actually, that's interesting. I was never even offered review code for that. I don't think I even requested it, actually. Yeah, possibly if I can get hold of some Friday the 13th code. I could do a multiplayer game of that at some point. I will keep that in mind. That's actually interesting. I find it a bit of an interesting one because, yeah, if you're playing as wait, hang on, who is it? Is it Freddy? Is it Jason? Oh shit. Oh dear. Jason. No, Freddy was Nightmare on Elm Street. It's Jason. It's Jason Voorhees. I think it's Jason. Yes, pretty sure it's Jason. Yes. If you're playing as Jason, it's a bit of a lonely experience. To my mind, I think it's fun to be a group of the cancer people. I thought it was okay, but hopefully it's improved a bit since the beta break, which was fun, but also had some clear limitations on it. But yeah, that's an interesting idea. I can see how it would be a good candidate for a multiplayer thing. And final question, can we ever expect Dragon Age on the series? Yes, at some point, but it's a big bloody commitment to take on. So, I imagine I'll kind of keep putting it off until a quiet moment. Because, yeah, it's a very big commitment to take on doing Dragon Age. Because, it's a huge, huge game. And if people like it, they're going to demand the series. And, the last time I did BioWare series, Mass Effect 2 did okay, but not great. So it's a lot of work for a series that I expect wouldn't actually do that well, which is why I don't deem it particularly high priority. Still, that's enough of that. I've been recording for just over 2 hours, but probably will be editing it down to a little bit under 2 hours. So, there you are. That is June's Patroncast, actually out in June for once. Blimey. Bet you didn't see that one coming. So, July's coming up in a few weeks' time. Watch out for that submission call. And then July after that point. Fun stuff coming up in July. We have got ourselves, we've got the VR stuff coming up over the next kind of couple of weeks. I've got a really, really exciting few kind of little mini-series for some indie games that are very similar to indie games that have done very well in the past. So, I don't want to spoil them, but you'll get to that. We've got plenty of interesting little stream events. There's a particularly interesting stream event I'm planning this Saturday. It's not Solaris this Saturday. Solaris will return next week. But this Saturday I've got something a bit different for a stream planned. I think you're going to like it because it pertains to one of the questions that was asked here this week as well. So try and guess which one. That'd be fun for you. So fun few bits and pieces floating around there. New Patroncast coming in a few weeks' time as well. But in the meantime, I've been John. It's been many a TrueNet, and thank you all so very, very much for joining me here in the June 27 Patroncast. Thank you very much, and goodbye.